Hello, welcome to the Level 1 News. Today is August 30th. We are almost done with summer, any day now, and today we're doing government and social media news. And another soda review, if we can open this bottle.
This one's pretty exciting. It's quite the gimmick.
It's a terrorizing taste, nuclear orange bomb.
And there's a picture of dear leader on there.
But we were debating, it's definitely not the current one, right? Is it the grandfather or the father?
I don't know.
It looks like the father, I think.
You know, I'm not
which is
that familiar with their faces. Now that
Kim
I think about it.
Jong-un, right?
Yeah, probably. It says pure cane sugar. There's not really, it's a water, cane sugar, citric acid, natural orange flavor, real vanilla, natural coloring. Nothing in nature is this shade of orange.
Not like fake vanilla.
I'm trying to think. Well, tiger lilies are.
This one is actually from one of our editors. This is like truck stop orange. That did not work out.
Oh, you lost some skin there.
I did, yeah.
Can confirm. Truck stop bottling.
This is mostly cream soda, just a hint of orange.
Does it give you the feeling that you might want to put somebody in front of an anti-aircraft gun?
For daring to eat more than their apportioned amount of food.
For falling asleep during a state meeting?
Yeah, it's almost odorless, which really mutes the flavor. The flavor comes from after you take a drink, and then whatever's left starts to evaporate, and then you get a really strong like vanilla cream taste with just a hint of orange.
So would you say it's not nuclear orange?
Yeah, the amount of orange that you get from this is about the same as somebody made orange juice in the kitchen, fresh squeezed, about 2 hours ago, and you walked in and it's like,
still smells a little bit like orange in here.
yeah, that's the level of orange that I get from it.
It's do they do this with like other world leaders, you think? Like, is there an orange soda that has like Biden on it somewhere?
Because who cares about it? He's not interesting.
He's not interesting, but
I would love to have some Mouse Bubble Yum, but that would be good.
So you've taken 2 or 3 drinks. How do you now feel about Western media?
It's a little over the top.
Think it's dangerous?
A little dangerous, yeah.
Think it needs to be rooted out?
It's certainly good at whipping people into a frenzy over nothing.
I kind of agree with it, and I haven't had any. But let's talk about big tech companies because, gosh, that's a popular topic, and they've gotten so big that we maybe don't really have control of them anymore.
Nope.
Maybe the dog is, it can't walk it anymore because it's stronger than you. And how did we get here? Well, maybe there's an answer.
Tech's lobbying agenda, I can't remember the exact headline, but Tech's lobbying agenda is following a big push to allow consolidation, study shows. So, Google wants to consolidate not just all the things that make sense, but all of the things that don't make sense as well. Facebook, they want to control literally every online destination that you might be interested in.
And as they grow with every merger, the lobbying increases and what they get for their lobbying dollar also increases. So they pay more, but they get more in return.
What is it that you always say? There's this little bit of an incestuous relationship. You see, the more consolidation there is, the easier it is for control as well. And so if the tech companies can demonstrate to politicians that they have a measure of control and can shape the message, then politicians are a lot more, let's say malleable to the message that they're peddling.
A little bit. I think we're up to flippers and eye stalks at this point.
I don't think our politicians matter so much as the companies in charge of us, really.
Oh, we didn't do an audio test.
Yes, we did.
Did we?
Yeah.
It was fine?
Yeah, it was fine.
Okay.
We
You were
also
playing on your
cut
phone.
the air conditioner.
Oh, I was completely on autopilot. My bad.
And the government agencies do go after some people, but so often they ignore the forest for one little sickly tree. Now, I agree this is a bad tree. We should get rid of it. But this should be the priority should not be this.
The FCC asks for a $5 million fine for right-wing activists' election robocalls. The other part of the headline, which wouldn't fit here, was they intend to give that $5 million fine to let you know that your auto warranty has
They've been trying to contact you.
It wasn't that kind of robocall. They were calling Primarily black people. How do you get a phone number list that's just black people? Who do you buy that from?
Why is there a list of that?
Like Facebook, right?
Well, they don't sell it. But they were saying that if you vote by mail, that information will be used to track you down if you have debt or warrants. In a way, as is often the case, they're tiptoeing into like even more racist territory by assuming that would be effective against the black community because they all have warrants and debt. No one seems to understand that when they're white knighting.
I've been following some of the election lawsuits, and some of the stuff is really hilarious. Like California owned Goal some stuff pretty hard. Like they changed the paper forms and then accidentally mailed people the old paper forms. So there's a lot of people, their votes just didn't count.
Yeah, everybody. But based on the optics of that story, that guy's going to get crushed.
Yeah.
And he deserves it. We shouldn't feel bad for him.
We should crush all robocallers because they don't work.
That's true.
And they're very annoying.
They're super annoying.
Yeah, but you can't argue that they don't work and then go after him for that amount of money. They have to argue that it did work.
Yeah.
Well, I saw this and I was terrified. And then I was like, oh, wait, it's only naturalized citizens. And I felt better. And I was like, well, I shouldn't feel better about that.
No, you shouldn't.
Just because I'm not part of it, I should still be upset about this.
Little known federal software can trigger revocation of citizenship. Known as Atlas, the software mines various federal databases for derogatory information, and it runs autonomously on Amazon servers.
So this is, I think this is what ended up. Remember when they first started checking your social media?
Yeah.
When you came into the country? This is what has come of that.
Yeah.
This is the bottom. Well, not the bottom. This is maybe the midpoint of the slippery slope.
Yeah, there's a long way we can fall from here.
Yeah. Well, just by applying it to the rest of the citizenry, right?
Yeah, it really is a kind of digital McCarthyism. It really is.
And they won't tell us exactly what it does, but obviously it's looking at your social media and anybody that you're interacting with online, stuff like that.
You don't even have a chance to appeal or explain it. It's like, we saw this social media post and it sounds like you're a filthy communist. And it's like, well, I might have attended a meeting. They have some convincing pamphlets, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to hijack an airliner or anything.
It sounds like you're a filthy communist, and we only allow those in Congress, not the regular citizenry. Get out. Intel is definitely taking advantage of a crisis. They have seen something that is lacking, and they are looking to get some federal dollars.
Intel inks a deal with the Department of Defense to support domestic chip building ecosystem. Meanwhile, Global Foundries is like, do what now?
Why you put this on a green background?
Yeah, that's a question I'm sitting here asking myself. This is like the laziest stock image they could have developed.
It's the Matrix or
And
something?
not even a good background.
I don't know.
Poorly clipped out. It's bad.
Terrible. So the government has obviously identified a problem with the lack of chips, and they're saying, hey, we've got to get chip building going on in this country. What's it going to take? Mountains of cash, turns out.
And it's not just Intel. IBM and a bunch of other companies are involved here, but also Global Foundries.
Aren't they building one in Arizona?
Yes.
That's what kills me. It's like, why Arizona?
A lot of people pointed out that Arizona, it's good because it's, geologically stable. There's I wouldn't put it in California because of the earthquakes and stuff. That's kind of a big deal. But water,
There's no water in Arizona or California.
Aren't we still on the...
Semiconductors use a lot of water.
Yeah, and the Colorado River is slowly getting smaller and smaller because we keep using too much water in that region. It should be somewhere else.
Lake Mead has gone into emergency mode the last 2-3 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just keep blasting that water in production we don't have.
We're going to have to go get an ice asteroid at this rate.
I think we should go to the northern border, and then we'll just throw a hose over. Get some of that Canadian water's better anyway, right?
Why not build it in the Great Lakes region though? It just doesn't make any sense. We have places that have water.
I'm pretty sure Nestle owns that.
Could we put a couple of outboard motors on some of those glaciers that broke off and just pilot it?
Takes us a long time to melt. Although maybe we could use that for cooling for all the other machinery. Well, software as a service is the new hotness, and a lot of people look down on it and they don't want to see the world go that way. But in some cases, it's really bad when the world goes that way because it makes it really easy.
The FBI has sent its first ever alert about a ransomware affiliate. So it's like, okay, here's an email. It's you get a phishing email, and then this is going to end up being a very professional group that's got their stuff together because an affiliate has sort of opened the door for them, which makes it extra, extra dangerous.
And you can spin up your own hacking ransomware as a service, and all you have to do is the legwork. They will do everything else for you. The toolkit to once you phish them, it's pretty trivial. So, zero barrier to entry. What could go wrong, right? This one is somewhat disappointing because while this is an overwhelming intrusion on your privacy, I think once you take that step into public service, you shouldn't have it anymore.
The government officials' internet browsing histories are not agency records under the Freedom of Information Act. So what happened here was the Cause of Action Institute sought to get copies of what certain politicians had browsed on the internet. That should be a records request, right? Those records are normally not maintained. So that seems to have been the main out here.
And the reason they can get away with this is because they don't have any rules about what their employees do while they're on the internet. Now, if they did have those rules and they were monitoring, then they would have to Freedom of Information Act, which means they will never do that.
Wait, there's no rules about what you can access while you're working there?
Apparently not.
And no rules on retention.
Wow.
And if they were to add that, if you were in there, if the only outbound connection from your computer was HTTPS to OnlyFans, it wouldn't matter. They still wouldn't do this because then they open up that door for oversight.
Yeah.
So if you are in one of these places, go crazy. Whatever you want.
Look up all the weird questions you have about stupid stuff at 2 a.m.
So many weird questions. So many.
And if there's a web GUI for some kind of horrible spying tool, just use it all you want because they're never going to do anything. In fact, maybe you could use it for this because it seems like every police presence in the country is using the hell out of it.
Google says geofence warrants make up to 1/4 of all U.S. demands. Geofencing, in case you're not, in the loop, is basically we want to know all the mobile devices that are in this given area. And usually the given area is pretty large at a specific time or in a specific time window.
How many of those have already proven to be false arrests at this point? Isn't it like 5 or 6 high-profile ones?
Yeah.
So you had...
It's not a perfect technology.
982 in 2018, a big jump in 2019 to 8,396, and then in 2020, 11,500. So we're definitely trending up. They do not give numbers on how many of those they denied. I bet it was a small number, don't you?
It's probably on the order of like single digits.
Yeah. Well, the Space Force, which is now Space Command, did we change it?
Probably.
Because it was Trump, right? You can't leave anything he created. He must all be destroyed and the earth salted. But Space Command has, they've been around for a couple years, and they say that they are now ready. They're out of the teething stage. They're ready.
The U.S. Space Command is now, quote unquote, a warfighting force, and it needs a permanent home. There's a lot of rambling and, just general bureaucracy in here, but the real gold nuggets were, we think in just a few years we're going to have force fields and laser beam, like space laser beam.
Who are we fighting?
Well, listen, if we get the space lasers on board, everybody else having an air force is not going to matter.
That's a different story.
Oh, that's a different story?
That's a different story. Yeah.
Well, it's the same event.
Maybe. But this one he's talking about, they want like an actual building somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't have one.
What? Who are they fighting?
The moon people.
Yeah, obviously. How much money is getting,
So
siphoned
much.
off into that? And
So
it's like,
much.
what are we gaining from this?
It turns out that we're just a backwater planet, and there's this elite
A
global
real
civilization.
utopia somewhere.
Yeah. There's this Stargate under Cheyenne Mountain. It's fine.
Krista, we spent $3 trillion and 20 years to do nothing. Does this surprise you at all? And lives. Don't even think about the lives. Well, California, it seems that they keep digging, and the more that they dig, the more rancid and horrible the earth becomes under this company.
California expands its lawsuit against Activision Blizzard. Oh boy, there's so many fun things that are coming out of this. The most insane and delightful, but also insane again thing is the shredding parties.
Yeah.
So there have been so many, and California was like, wait, you're shredding a lot of human resources documents? Why? It's like, recent change in company policy. Don't worry about it.
But we changed the name of McCree in Overwatch. Don't you guys feel better? Please stop talking about this and keep playing our games and buying loot boxes.
Have you?
No.
Ooh. How long's it been?
Like a month.
Wow.
I was kind of getting bored with it anyway, but like I was like, whatever.
Which Overwatch voice line would you spam while you were shredding important documents?
That's a good question.
I'm pretty sure Nathan Fillion can fill in the gaps in Destiny 2. You could probably take up Destiny 2 and have a lot of fun with that.
I used to spam Woo Jackpot from Lucio a lot because it was really obnoxious because you could just spam woo, woo, woo. And that would sound nice going into the shredder.
Well, isn't Destiny's not the same kind of game, is it? Isn't that like PvE?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to scratch the itch.
Team Fortress? Still a lot of people playing Team
Krista
Fortress.
getting into Team Fortress.
I think if I had gotten into Team Fortress like when it first launched, I would have been really into it. But when we played it on stream, the people who are left playing Team Fortress are like the super hardcore people. And I was like, I don't understand the meta of the characters yet. I don't understand all the abilities yet. And it's frustrating to play.
You know what I miss? I miss the Unreal Tournament 2004 Capture the Point games where they had vehicles and you would like capture a node and that would unlock another node and then you'd have to capture that node. That was the pinnacle of like multiplayer team co-op.
Isn't that Battlefield as well?
It's a little...
I think Modern Battlefield does that.
I played Modern Battlefield and it's just not as... It's actually not as fast-paced as the old Unreal Tournament 2004.
You know what game looks really interesting? And I know I'm too old. And that it's bothering me. Because I was like, I want to be a part of this. It seems really cool, but I know I can't compete, is Hell Let Loose. It's World War II, I guess. And no UI. No in-game chat. You take points like Unreal Tournament, but you have to have an officer there to do it. So you really have to play with your teammates.
Wow.
But, it'd be one of those games where I just die and I don't know how.
Yeah.
Well, California is still... These court battles are so annoying because it's like ping pong, you know?
Yeah.
And then we're just sitting here like cats. Like, oh.
No, you.
So now we're back to no gig worker initiative.
California rules gig worker initiative is unconstitutional. You cannot classify gig workers as different and apart and special from other workers, at least currently as it is under California law.
Some gig workers seem to like that, some don't. Definitely seems to be two sides here.
I really think that the future of gig working has got to be some kind of a co-op. I just don't think we're going to have a Walmart of gig working because there's not enough money to be made there.
But to do that, you have to compete with the Walmart and destroy them.
Uber, I think, has only got probably a year or two left because they're not profitable.
Yeah, but that can go on for so long.
Only if there's wealthy that are interested in
Right.
destroying
Propping
another
up.
market.
Yeah.
See, but you're learning something here that's very disturbing when you get into this kind of thing. The market can stay insane far longer than you can stay solvent.
That does seem to be true because isn't that how Walmart put out Main Street? And
That's and Amazon too.
I meant to include a story on it. Did you see that what they're doing with like the dark box store valuations? So like around here, how we've got all the empty malls, they're petitioning to have their buildings reevaluated on property taxes to be the same value as the empty malls because they're just it's a big empty box, and that's removing millions of dollars in property taxes. And so like little communities that have already given incentives to the big box stores to move in the form of tax breaks and other stuff, they also now don't get any
Actual return on.
there's now less taxes being paid when there were Main Street businesses doing stuff.
Gosh, that seems like it's contrary to the common good. How would that have ever been made into law?
And then, the California gig worker is like the same thing happening over and over again.
Maybe this has something to do with those lobbying dollars when you consolidate.
That's the theme of this week's news. Oh my gosh.
Didn't we go through this like years ago in like the 1900s where they were like, monopolies are bad?
In like the 1980s.
Where was
Yeah.
the railroads?
Yeah.
The railroads destroyed the corporate charter thing was never supposed to work like this. And those railroad barons are the ones who started that ball rolling. I mean, they were useful though. Did we get more out of the rail than we lost in terms of personal freedoms and liberties?
Wasn't that built with like Chinese slave labor?
Yeah.
A lot of rails. I mean,
There's I've been reading about Siberia and the gulags and stuff like that. There's a road called the Bone Road because they literally just put the bodies down as they were going, and they're all under there, and it's permafrost,
Wow.
so they're still there.
but they'll probably be melted in a few years.
Over in the UK, they kind of have GDPR, but now they've separated, and what's it going to be? Well, we don't know.
GDPR happened during Brexit, and the headline is UK to overhaul privacy rules and post-Brexit departure from GDPR. So the European Union has GDPR, and Brexit, and during Brexit it was copy-paste, but they're saying, oh, maybe we should not have GDPR. Maybe we should, reform it. And so what's been floated so far demonstrates a hilarious misunderstanding of how technology works, and we're probably going to be back to like the real ID card in order to get on the internet, which is probably bad.
Think they'll go back to the adult content thing?
Probably.
They had to give up on.
It's like, that was such a good idea. I don't know why we didn't do that. Let's try again.
Who was it? Australia that said they were going to do that last? And we still haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, every other country it seems like gets that idea, and then they're like, oh, it's not feasible.
Yeah, Australia's got a lot of stuff in DNS ban, but then you can just use a DNS server outside of Australia, and in Australia they're like, well, I guess that's fine.
It gets the headline, right? Well, nothing else matters. Now, there's been a couple of times we've looked at these ransomware attacks or just, the data thefts and stuff like that. And there's a lot of argument. Was this state-sponsored? Was this just private teams? Is it Russia? Is it China? Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you're like, well, I don't know. I think actually you bring this up a lot. It's like, would a state-sponsored person do that? Because that's just going to expose them. Why would they do that one? Because why do they need to steal money? They're state-sponsored. This is probably the answer.
It turns out, this is amazing. Spies for hire. China's new breed of hackers blend espionage and entrepreneurship. So these are spies, according to the article, these are spies that are working for state-sponsored organizations, but they're rank-and-file employees just like everybody else. Sometimes, you're deep in the machine, you're in the finance machines, you're in the, the payroll machine, and it's like, wow, I could just hit a button and transfer $70,000 out of this account to somewhere else. And so they do. And then that tips them off that, hey, this is an espionage operation. But they're able to exfiltrate, real actual money because they had access to those systems.
Also, they point out they go outside the country a lot. Like, I think it was the Philippines, right, where the one guy was from. And the way they caught on to this is it never happens that China posts a non-Chinese language job posting. But in this case, Filipino, because they knew exactly who they wanted. Maybe that'll bring them together. And we got a far larger than usual South Korea block today. A lot of stuff going on down there. And we'll start out with Facebook. And finally somebody did this. Hey, what about our leaders?
Facebook used facial recognition without consent 200,000 times, said Korea's data watchdog. And so it hands Zuck its second largest fine ever, and also makes Netflix pay and warns Google to be more obvious about privacy. So this is really interesting. Google actually didn't get fined for a change. And the other fines, most of them were very small. $22,000, $14,000, $6,000 or $8,000. And it's really just, this big audit that they did to find out how data was handled. And they just said, well, Google, you could do a couple of things better, but it wasn't contrary to the law, so we're not going to fine you. But, of course, Facebook was not doing a great job.
And what do you think Google did to get away with it?
They took some money out of their bribe account and gave it to the South Korean officials who were investigating, obviously.
Why didn't Facebook do that?
Facebook's running lower on money because they've been bribing too many officials at this point. And now South Korea's getting in on it. They're like, oh, crap.
I did not realize. I'm sure we talked about. Oh no, 10 years ago, so we didn't talk about this.
No, say China has this, but South Korea, I didn't know they had it.
Yeah, South Korea has their own gaming restrictions, not quite as draconian as China, or I should say, they did.
South Korea to end its controversial gaming curfew. So this was, if you are 16 or under, you cannot play video games at like a video game cafe between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m.
2011. They assumed that if nothing else, that would give kids 6 hours to sleep before they went back to their PUBG addiction. But I guess it's not working? I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's interesting. I can't imagine being out like that late at that age, but
The law said that, or the article said that the law also restricted like console gaming. So like if you were required to be online, as is the case with console games, that it would also have to follow the rules. And what Microsoft and Sony did was, rather than like try to figure out what your gaming schedule was if you were 16, is they just made you have to be an adult in order to set up an account, which is, they said, was an unintended side effect. They didn't want to, have to have kids lie about their age in order to play console games.
South Korea has also, I guess they got together and they're like, all right, now is our turn. It's our turn to go after the big tech companies. We've gotten the letter in the mail. We're ready. Get your fines ready.
South Korea Parliament Committee votes to curb Google and Apple commission dominance. So this is about their app stores. It's almost as if somebody, woke up inside the South Korean Parliament and said, hey, wait a minute. It is kind of like, if you want to buy software from me, a software developer, what say does Google or Apple have in that? Why can they take 30%? It's like, oh, it's because it's a Google or Apple controlled device. Nothing else really operates like that. Like when you buy a phone, it's your phone. You can do what you want with it. When you buy a computer, it's your computer. You can load whatever software you want on it. It interferes with commerce, and that's sort of not capitalism to have somebody there with their palm out saying, well, if you want to do that, you're going to have to pay me. At least in this way.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. And yet. Moving on to social media. And I noticed one of these. I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit, but I did notice one of these. And I was like, why is this on my front page? This is nothing I would ever be
like
interested
every
in.
subreddit had it for a while.
Turns out it was everywhere.
Reddit responds to calls from moderators to fight disinformation. Reddit has basically said, look, the internet is full of people that have very strong opinions. We really, really don't want to get involved, even though some of those opinions are unsavory. And we don't really think this is a big deal.
It's particularly about the jab.
Yeah.
If you're speaking out against the jab, they want you completely silenced. A lot of people have been accusing me in the comments of being anti-vax. Could not be further from the truth. I think every single human being on Earth should get it, except for me. And to say that I'm like angry at those that do get it, again, couldn't be further from the truth. I salute you for being in that clinical trial. You're doing a wonderful thing.
Hey, it's fully approved now.
Right? It is fully approved. Yeah. Monday. We just don't have long-term data yet.
Sure. I think anybody who had, the selflessness to get that vaccine, they have really big hearts.
They gave me nachos.
Really big hearts, and only a very small portion of those is because of the inflammation.
I was going to ask this, actually. They did Crush the Thing in our area. Did you get a free crush with your... What's the point?
You were the one person that should have gotten it. Also, Chris, you stepped on my inflammation punchline. I'm angry about that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I saw where you were going with that, and it was just like...
I just had that thought, and I was like, did Wendell get one? Of all the, we're sitting here drinking orange soda all the time. You should have gotten one from the county.
I've still got a couple of the very kind of the sausage toast.
I was just going to ask how much you've got left.
I've got like 2 cans left, and I've for the last 6 cans, I've been really conservative because it's like.
What's your average cans per day since you got them?
I think I had 2 on the first day, which is delightful, and then I've probably averaged about 1 can every other day. Maybe the last 3 days I've gone about 2 or 3 days without one, but I've been really fiending for one.
I think It's not unrealistic to expect Sausage Toast to pick up some like gig work on the side so he can continue the pipeline.
Supply.
Yeah.
Whenever Ken Burns does a documentary about, the hardships of 2020 and 2021, we'll have an excerpt of that interview of you being like, I've been conserving my Orange Crush.
Well, I've been having trouble getting, because Mom is real picky about stuff, like the cat food and like certain breakfast snacks and just all of the stuff and the brands. And she's like, are you just not going to do grocery shopping for me anymore? And it's like, I go to the store like 3 times a week, which is about 2 more times than I want to go. Because there is nothing. There is nothing available.
Yesterday, there was not a single small individual serving bottle of bottled water in the entire store.
You got to start drinking tap water like the rest of us peasants.
Luckily, they had some gallon jugs of Nestle, but those were almost all gone. They had 8. I got 6 of them. And that's really, really hitting home.
Gotta start eating vegetables and stuff too. You can't be affording meat anymore.
Oh yeah, the meat prices are just bananas.
Everything's getting crazy. It's getting crazy. Facebook.
Ken Burns cut here.
How old is Ken Burns?
He's ancient.
Yeah.
He did a documentary about the Great Depression I watched last year. It was really good. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
His Vietnam, his Civil War is amazing. Have you watched the Civil War one? Oh, you gotta watch the Civil War one. It's great. Facebook. Of course, Facebook had the big election fiasco in 2016. A lot of people judged them on it, but they kind of came out the other side looking okay because they gave the masses what they want. They silenced the crowd by letting them eat the orange man. But it's going to happen again really soon, and they know that, and they have to do something.
Facebook said to consider forming an election commission. The social network has contacted academics to create a group to advise it on thorny election-related decisions, said people with knowledge of the matter. What a great way to alienate the non-academics.
Yeah. Now,
which has already caused problems in this country.
If we pull exclusively from the university system, I wonder if that'll be weighted toward one political party or not.
No, that's impossible. It's a random distribution, right?
And by one political party, I mean the Chinese Communist Party.
That divide between rural and urban, it feels like it's just getting bigger every year.
Except they're all moving here.
I checked on some of the people that the FBI charged as like, oh my gosh, you're spying for China. They don't have a great track record so far. They may be overreacting.
Wait, who doesn't have a great track record?
The FBI.
Oh yeah. Facebook is still insistent that they are going to get into the digital wallet thing and the crypto, and Libra is still lurking in the background there. They don't like to talk about that, but I'm sure that there are still plans to dust that off eventually.
I love this.
And this is going to be maybe a way to get the kids involved.
Bloomberg's headline is, Facebook considers building NFT features alongside a digital wallet. Social network is definitely looking at digital assets as part of a push into financial products, executive says. So you got to understand, this is not Libra. They're worried about attracting too much attention with Libra. So what's actually going on here is they want to build a crypto wallet that also works with whatever stuff they're going to build in. So it just so happens that it's going to have similar functionality to Libra, but it's not going to be dependent on Libra, at least not at first. But then they're also going to build in NFTs, and hey, you want to have like a garage sale thing on Facebook? What if you could just handle that transaction seamlessly and cleanly in Facebook? It's a win-win, but we're not going to talk about that. Even with productized names, it's just going to be a way for you to handle your money on Facebook.
And I bet every other kind of transaction will have fees, and Libra won't.
Oh, that's we're not going to say that. We're not going to talk about that. That's our goal was to make it easy for people to deal with money. We're not going to talk about those things.
Everyone on Marketplace just does cash. Some people do Venmo, but most people are just like, give me cash when you get here.
That sounds like terrorism, Kristen.
Yeah. A lot of the time, some people are really terrible too, because it's like, this is $100, and they're like, okay, that sounds great. And then they show up and they're like, all I've got is $80 in cash. And it's like, all right, we'll leave.
See ya.
How much of your flesh are we going to cut off? Let's say £1. Facebook, so we got two stories here. The first is just about what they did, and then the second is why they did it, and then you understand why they did it.
Facebook suppressed a report that made it look bad.
Surprise!
New York Times obtained a draft of a report that was in the works about the first quarter of 2021.
What was so bad about this?
Facebook says that this one post that cast doubt on the vaccine was the most popular on the platform from January through March. Oh, no.
Now, you're probably thinking, oh, this was, like, who's the hot right-wing person right now? Tucker Carlson? Tucker Carlson, getting out there and being like, you don't get it, it's going to kill you, blah, blah, blah. No. It wasn't even, like, all that critical. It was an actual, like...
a dude in a truck?
South Florida Sun, distributed by the Chicago Tribune, and it was just about, like, actual facts about a doctor who died after getting the vaccine. So it wasn't really propaganda, but Facebook was very embarrassed that this is what people wanted to read. So they hid that fact. Until somebody found out about they were hiding it. Now they've embarrassed themselves and told us about it. I think what they're most embarrassed about there is that they couldn't control the narrative. They made a position, and then the people went against it, and they were like, again?
Now, while you're thinking about that, I want you to think back about the lobbying and consolidation theme.
I was just thinking, man, that's really going to make it hard for them to lobby Congress if it's like, you can't even control the narrative about this. How are you supposed to get me elected?
Exactly, yeah. That is kind of like their performance sheet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go to talk to the congressman, you take him his duffel bag full of cash. He's like, listen, guys, I got an offer from Google. And they get stuff done. Ethiopia has had some political turmoil, and do you understand it? I don't quite understand it. I'm not going to
I
try
haven't
to
followed that, so I'm not sure.
I'm going to try to take a position on it, but there's definitely controversy, and social media, like everywhere else, is a big boiling pot for that controversy. So what do you do?
Ethiopia to build local rival to Facebook and other platforms, because I guess people were posting things that they shouldn't have been posting, or things that didn't fit the narrative. We don't know. But because Ethiopia is so far removed from everything, Twitter and Facebook weren't super responsive. So now they're like, okay, we need to build our own that we can control, which is kind of the theme for everywhere.
Well, I think some of this might also be that Twitter and Facebook don't agree with those in power.
Yeah.
Like it's like, no, let people say what they want. They don't like that. They're not going to ban it, they say. I don't know about that.
Once they get theirs built, they probably will.
They have turned it off. The last time they had an election, they turned it off for several days. So it's not unprecedented. Boy, we got a lot of comments on last Friday's news video. Everybody correcting this. We didn't know at the time.
Yeah, this was recent
This
news
was
post.
recorded ahead of time.
OnlyFans drops the planned ban of adult content, but will continue to allow it. And as predicted, it was the banks. Although, I don't know, like we said that early, like a week early, and then maybe that was news. But yeah, they literally said we wouldn't, like this wasn't our decision. It was basically, we're not going to be able to take credit cards unless we change the kind of content that we offer. But they found another bank that was willing to deal with them. And so after that, then they can say, yeah. Because if you say, oh, it's, the payment processor, they're just going to cut you off immediately. They thought they could still survive in some reduced way. They wouldn't, their business is profitable. They wouldn't change anything if they didn't have to. It's external forces. Which, again, is like the Apple thing. Isn't that somebody torturously interfering with your business? How is that not illegal?
But I don't understand. Well, but now you're saying that the bank has to bake your cake. Right?
It has to handle money for you.
Yeah, you're forcing them. You can't do that.
What if you incorporate it with the Federal Reserve? Like if you have a bank that wants to do that, fine, but then they're not, they're not going to be allowed to participate with the Federal Reserve.
They can't use the repo window?
Yeah.
They would all get on board the next day.
That's how you fix those problems.
Well, but then you're using the government's hand to steer a certain direction.
No,
what if we're wrong?
The free market, if you want to have a private bank, that's completely okay.
How about we just let other banks be banks and fight the monopoly?
Yeah, that would also be acceptable.
Yeah. Change all that regulation so that you have the ability to create a bank without already being super rich. And this one is hilarious.
The picture is amazing.
You really
This is a
now
good
he,
photo.
as far as we know, he was not a part of it.
Yeah.
No.
That would have probably immediately drawn too much attention. But if you're a little bit lower ranked, a lot of guys thought they could get away with this, and apparently did for quite some time.
The Vatican is in quote-unquote freak-out mode after discovering a litany of priests on Grindr. So we had that story the other day about the priest that was on Grindr, and they knew because they were able to de-anonymize his geolocation data. Well, it turns out there's a lot of that kind of data out there, and anybody that's interested can kind of figure it out. You can also just sort of ask around and, like, you know, maybe you've got the spreadsheet of priests and you can sort of run through that and, you know, find if anybody's got a public profile, and oh crap, they do.
A lot of them that were found on there, they're not priests anymore.
I would absolutely say that these guys have a right to privacy, and why would you even just let them do what they want to do if it wasn't for them standing up in front of groups of people every week and telling them how to live? Once you do that, whatever happens to you is fair
They took
game.
an oath of celibacy. Say
That's
the same
true.
thing if they were on Tinder or any dating site. It's kind of like, what are you doing?
Maybe they're just looking for conversation.
You can get that at church.
Listen, I'm gonna get the hotel room. I'm gonna do the meth with this young man, but there's no sex. I take that very seriously.
We just watch TV together.
Right, yeah. And nothing with an R rating.
It's just WKYT.
Yeah.
Because that's all you can get in the.
And nothing not on meth.
I do love that photo. It looks like he's getting ready to throw the book. Literally.
He's just like, what is going on?
You know what's in this book? It's all the reasons I'm gonna kick your ass.
All right, what do we got for tomorrow?
We haven't chosen yet. It's gonna be business and whatever the next smallest group is.
You know what else is going to be chosen? The next orange soda.
I don't think you gave a letter grade or a venue.
Oh yeah. Oh, switch it back so they can watch.
This is probably a B minus. It's a little too sugary. Because it's a little too sugary, I wouldn't want it except like after dinner. Like this would be a good after dinner snack after having had like a steak or something, but you're not overly full.
Is this like? Well, you said it was from a truck stop, correct?
I think it was something like that.
Well, that makes sense that it's like hyper sugary because it's probably like you get that so you can stay awake on your route at night.
Well, there's no caffeine or anything in it. It's just sugar.
Does it say where it's bottled? Who makes that?
I think this is maybe from a 12-pack or something.
North Korea.
A sampler.
Thousand Oaks, California.
Okay.
RBC Co. Terrorizing taste. It tastes
What a bizarre label.
like violent orange, which tastes nothing like orange in general.
All right. We'll see you guys. What? The day from now? Whatever. We'll
Tomorrow.
see you soon. Bye.
The first day of September.
Oh my
September.
gosh, I'm not okay with time moving this fast. Time needs to stop.
It's not going to. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the news. Today is September 1st. And today we're doing... What are we doing? We're doing security and... Was it business?
Business.
Business.
21
I
is
thought we did
almost
business.
gone.
Yeah. It's fall now. We got to prepare our fine meals for the winter ahead.
Oh, that reminds me. The Pi KVM, you know, it's the Raspberry Pi, there's a KVM. They have a Kickstarter now. I just thought I'd mention that.
Why would you encourage a competitor?
The Pi, no, it's a remote control. You can combine it with our KVM and then have a multi-port KVM that works over the network.
We should immediately start making that product.
It's a little trickier than that. They did a lot of software that I don't want to do. I only had to do a little bit of software.
Steal their software.
Somebody did steal their software, but I don't know. There's a Kickstarter for the Pi KVM. Check that out.
Well, Raspberry Pi, I think, is definitely a hardware company that has a lot of goodwill from their consumers. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Does anybody hate Raspberry Pi?
No, they've
No.
never done anything horribly evil.
Yeah, they tend to sell you what they say they're going to sell you. They give it to you for some very reasonable prices.
The most terrible thing they've ever done has been around their PoE hats, which they can't seem to get right for some reason.
But I don't think they're doing that on purpose.
No, they're fixing it. It's just it takes a couple of tries.
This one, on the other hand, I think this was on purpose.
It definitely was. Western Digital has been caught bait and switching customers with slow SSDs. So what happened here is a modern SSD has fast cells and slow cells, and it has to do with density. And so they switched out from a low density cell to the lowest density cell. And the thing is, this SSD would perform exactly identical to two different models. Well, actually, they were the same model, but the two different models with the different components would perform identically until you hit the wall of the faster cache, the faster flash that's used as a cache. And then once you hit that wall, the other one would perform significantly slower.
This is on top of their last scandal, which also affected the storage.
Mechanical hard drives,
We
yeah,
did
shingled.
multiple stories about Western Digital's crap failing.
They weren't the only ones,
Yeah.
but they were a big one.
I think the shingled magnetic one is a much worse situation because it's immediately slow always in all scenarios. At least with this one, it's not slower than advertised in all scenarios. It's just when you run out of the faster flash type that it becomes much slower.
But I think it's more insidious that way.
I think that they should have disclosed that a lot louder, or probably used a different model number.
But then no one would buy it. Samsung has also done something very nasty. And this is another one of those things where you have to ask, what could possibly be the reasoning for this? What excuse could you possibly give other than to screw the consumer for doing something you don't like?
I know the answer. Samsung kills the cameras on the Galaxy Z Fold 3 if you unlock the bootloader. They're going the Sony route. They're going as anti-consumer as possible. I think the reason for this is because there are a lot of ads now baked into the Samsung family of applications. They've promised to remove them. They are being very slow about removing those ads, and I think that this is to discourage you from DIYing that.
My question was, if not to screw the consumer.
Well, I mean, it's to prevent the consumer from removing the ads, which I guess
screws them.
Yeah.
This screws the user.
They're not intentionally screwing the user, but they're doing it for profit.
You know what's
I
crazy?
think they are doing it intentionally.
Somebody I know got that phone, and I got to play with it for about 15 or 20 minutes. It was actually a surprisingly good experience.
For the foldy one?
Uh-oh, are you getting the...
Yeah,
the
it's
feeling?
like, I don't know. It costs too much. I don't know that I want it.
You're just angling for somebody to send you one.
My
Sausage toes.
Oh, it just thundered.
There it is.
My $350 OnePlus phone is so good that it makes me not want to pay significantly more than that for a phone. And oh boy, that phone is significantly more than that.
But think how cool you'll look.
It is nice having the giant screen.
Think about how the envy of all the other people as you whip it out and unfold it.
I would probably drop it while unfolding it.
And then the cool factor just goes down dramatically.
I struggle in the one that's got the keyboard. A lot of the awesomeness of having the keyboard is lost on me because I struggle to open it without dropping it.
I noticed you kind of abandoned that phone as
Yeah.
much as you championed it.
Yeah, I use it for troubleshooting things and like when I need a remote Linux and like it's something super portable, but it's too hard to open.
Also, Ryan, did you drive your nice car here today?
I did. Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh.
But I have to wash it tomorrow anyway, so
Okay.
I was kind of okay with it. It was a calculated risk, much like the jab. So this story, they don't mention it, but I think I can read between the lines here. And they do give us a heading here saying that J.Y. Lee, just days ago, got out of prison. Now I wonder if I had somebody in prison and I were a country and I wanted to negotiate, and he was a billionaire, and I wanted to negotiate something good for my country to let him out, what would I ask for?
Samsung to hire 40,000 in $205 billion 3-year spree. So Samsung, again, they fly under the radar for some reason. They're enormous, but they're also one of the world's largest chip makers. And so they're saying, hey, for the next 5 years, the whole chip shortage thing, none of that's going away. Everybody, I don't care if you're a toaster maker or a phone maker, you want 5 and 7 nanometer chips because they're more efficient, they're more powerful, blah, blah, blah. We need more of them than ever. And Samsung doesn't see that going away, so they're producing memory, they're producing storage, they're producing microprocessors. Microprocessors by transistor count really isn't where everything is now, storage. I mean, we have trillions of transistors in modern storage devices like NAND flash, sort of, kind of. And, yeah, that's a lot.
And clearly Western Digital can't get enough of it, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Oh, that's foreshadowing for another story.
Oh, it's the one we just did.
No, it's West Digital and Kioxia.
All right. Oh, those should go together. It might be a different. No, it should be in business, right?
Yeah.
I missed the sort there.
Whoops.
Well, TSMC, a lot of people have been seeing this coming for a long time. I think they waited as long as they possibly could.
They could, yeah.
And what can you do here? They have to do this.
TSMC hikes chip prices up to 20% amid a supply shortage. The Taiwanese company faces earnings pressure with plans for overseas plants. I think this is probably, if we get a functioning plant here in America that is 7 nanometer or below, fine.
I think that would cost more than 20%, though, don't you think?
Yeah, but if they're saying that we need to do 20% now in order to be able to afford that, as long as
we're going to pay for that?
Yeah.
Nah, that'd be nice because the rest of the world can pay for it, too.
Yeah.
Since when does the U.S. ever get money from somebody else? It'd be nice for a change. Well, Bosch is a big company that supplies automotive stuff, and obviously we've learned that those cars desperately need chips, and these guys are losing their patience.
Bosch says the semiconductor supply chains in the car industry no longer work, and they're going to have to figure something out. Mainly the complaint here is that the semiconductor industry hasn't figured out how to do just-in-time manufacturing. They basically faked it by looking at the history of the thing and then doing the Monte Carlo analysis and, basically just sort of saying, all right, we're just going to put a room full of wafers in there and we'll sell them to you whenever you need them. But it takes us 6 months to set up and spin up your chips. So here in the global questionable situation, that's not really going to happen. What I think is going to happen with the whole chips industry is that automotive, except for the whole AI self-driving thing, cars don't need 12 and 7 and 5 nanometers CPU or, processed silicon. They need power transistors. They need, door locks and door controls and crap like that. I think that probably an entrepreneur is going to pop up here with some kind of rapid thing that's on some garbage process from 15 years ago that's like an inkjet process instead of a photolithographic process on silicon. And then that person is going to be making really, really crappy silicon by modern standards, but it's exactly what the automotive industry needs, and it will go for those bargain basement prices the automotive industry is looking for. Samsung doesn't need to be making high-end ICs for the automotive industry, except for the AI and the self-driving.
I think you're wrong about that. I think the amount of horsepower you need to time 8 cylinders and decide when to pull 4 of them out of the block on demand?
You can do that with an FPGA.
Maybe, but you're also looking to minimize the space because the car engines are getting super crowded.
I think that the heat and the road noise and debris and vibration and crap like that, I don't think that 14 nanometers and below is a good solution for that. I think for industrial controllers like that, a bigger process like a 60 nanometer is probably the ideal sweet spot of efficiency and power and ruggedness.
But I bet if you were to standardize a lot of stuff in the car industry, which whether they will fight you tooth and nail, you could also solve this problem.
That is
solve
true.
It faster.
Probably would solve that faster, yes.
Yeah.
Your entire car runs on 73 Atmel microcontrollers.
Yeah, and when one goes bad, your local mechanic can just pop it out and replace it. That's why they'll never do it.
Yeah.
Well, this is old news at this point. I put this in the business section because, it's the banks. We already knew this. We already talked about it yesterday, but this is why.
The Financial Times, OnlyFans CEO, and why the site is banning the content. They're not now, but it says the short answer is banks. But they found some banks that were willing to do business. How crazy is it that the HSBC is willing to do business with terrorists and drug lords, but something like this is that's too risky.
But I don't understand. Maybe for your 60-plus-year-old customers, maybe that matters. But I got to think to anybody under 25, aren't we going in the other direction where sex workers are celebrated and all of this?
I think there's also a concern of some of that content might not be legal, and they don't want to be caught up in that.
So you think the bank they fear that they would be liable?
Yeah, in some way, or just be bad press for them.
They certainly don't seem to be worried about arms dealing.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much terrible stuff that goes through the banks.
But arms dealing is probably something condoned by the U.S. government, whereas if the site that you're doing banking for is hosting CP, you can get in trouble from the government about that.
You know, the U.S. government did used to sell arms under the table, but these days what we like to do is just airdrop in military equipment and then leave. That's our new
Whoever
thing.
gets it.
Yeah.
It's like a loot crate in PUBG.
We put out an honesty jar. It's like, all right, put 10 million in this if you want this helicopter. Apple regularly patents things, and because they're Apple, there's an army of sleuths out there just constantly poring over them, and they've found something interesting.
Apple wins a patent for dual display MacBook with virtual keyboard and wireless charging capabilities. Like you lay the phone on the laptop and then it wirelessly charges. I really hope the hardware hacker that did the wirelessly charging your phone in the wrist pad of the laptop has posts and stuff somewhere, because that would be nice, because I don't want Apple to get a patent on that.
Could they ever make a pure software keyboard livable?
I don't think so.
I can't imagine.
I had that Lenovo Yoga Pad that had that. It had an e-ink display on one side and LCD display on the other. And it was nice, but it was not something that I wanted to do a lot of typing on.
You could probably outrun it very easily, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's the ring. Oh, here's our miss sort. Western Digital.
Oh, embarrassing.
Maybe, you know, they're having some trouble supplying things, and one of the ways you might be able to get around that is start acquiring.
Western Digital and Kioxia in talks to create a chipmaker giant, according to source. So Western Digital is pivoting more into storage, and Kioxia is, of course, the flash storage division of what was formerly known as Toshiba. But Kioxia is kicking butt and taking names too. They've come out with a lot of really innovative products, including, and I don't know why this wasn't obvious to everybody in the market, they're making things like serial attached SCSI flash drives, modern flash available in an old interface, because your old server is probably fine, especially if you replace the old spinning Rust disks in it with flash disks, and no one else is really doing that to that level.
So we'll see if they get any of this merger static that everybody else is getting. What do you think their lobbying efforts are currently?
Well, this is a Japanese company mainly, so it'll probably just be fine.
Oh, I'm sure they have a Western lobbying arm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. They do so much business here. It's a lot of rain.
Yeah, the rain is getting harder.
Ooh, it's not going to be good for my basement. Well, Google has had a bit of a problem lately with their uppity employees. Oh, they want to have us. That's like, oh, you can't kill people with military contracts. We don't like that. Oh, AI needs to have ethics. You can't have killer robots. And Google is saying, all right, you know what? We didn't define the lines before, but now we're just going to straight up tell you.
Google staff have no right to protest its choice of clients. So Google has formally sent a memo, I guess, to its employees saying, hey, we're going to work for some people, and not everybody likes all of the people that we're going to work for. That is not an okay thing to debate.
You have no input there. Get back to your cubicle and crank out more diverse emojis.
Which is kind of funny, because the U.S. government is like, well, you can't have Iran as a client. Clearly.
You think that will make Google lose more talent? Because are they also one of the ones requiring people start coming back into the office?
Yeah, I
They
think
flirted with it, but then the plus might have slowed them down.
Yeah.
I really think a lot of these things are kind of a stealth layoff from Google, because if you look at the pattern and connect the dots, the coming back into the office thing, the pay cut thing, this thing, and some other unpopular things, like basically the laundry list of every unpopular thing Google has wanted to do for the last 5 years.
They've just put it off until now.
Yeah, they're trying to cram it all through, and that's why I think maybe it's kind of a stealth layoff.
Google also has a pretty spotty track record of releasing things that are contrary to the consumer good. And one of the ways in the modern day that you can kind of try to tiptoe around that is to create an oversight committee that's basically toothless. But they chose the wrong man for the job.
Jeremy Keith has resigned from the AMP Advisory Committee. It has become clear to me that AMP remains a Google product. AMP stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. It's a kind of standard that combines HTML and JavaScript and packing so that when you're on mobile, things will be insanely fast on mobile, because chances are your internet connection is garbage. Chances are your screen can't download high-resolution images. There's probably a lot of things that are up with the, in terms of edge cases for having a good mobile experience. And Google is building a lot of their own stuff, like email, their mobile email stuff around accelerated mobile pages or AMP. And so after a couple of years, the people that are on AMP is like, hey, the parts of this that should be open source are still not open source. And this is part of the OpenJS Foundation. So we're not really accomplishing anything here anymore. I resign.
Yikes. What do you think he was getting paid?
The article said that it made it sound like he wasn't getting paid at all.
Screw that, yeah.
The article made it sound like he's like, I would do this if it was open source, but since Google controls it and they haven't open sourced the key parts, that's why I'm out.
Yeah, it's a good move. Smart thing to do. Don't get in bed with the corporate masters, ever. I don't care how nice they are to you. They're not your friends. Netflix, for a while, has been teasing. They're like, yeah, we're getting into gaming. And a lot of people are like, do we really need another gaming subscription service? We kind of have a lot right now. And Netflix says, you know what? We're going to do it. But boy, did they half-ass it.
Netflix takes its first stab at mobile gaming in its Android app, but only in Poland, and only with mobile games that it had previously developed for other campaigns.
And only 2 of them.
And they're both Stranger Things themed. It's like their ad agency was just sitting around. It's like, well, I guess we got these apps that we did before. Let's roll it out in Poland.
And you can play them in other places. So, not much here. But they claim they're going to do more. So we'll see.
And then all the gaming shows, which used to be exciting games, are now just mobile games for like Netflix and stuff. And it's like, oh, this is garbage.
Yeah. We'll always have the indie roguelikes, Krista. That's where you have to put your faith. Cheating in video games, we were talking about this last week, man. PUBG got real bad. I don't think they've ever managed to get a handle on that, have they?
No.
A lot of big games, popular games, they don't know how to deal with this. It used to be when they told you they were putting anti-cheat or DRM on a video game, you'd be like, oh, God. Should I just pirate it? Because I know they're going to take that out. But now, apparently, people clamoring for it.
Anti-cheat services in video games are now a selling point. You know, there's a lot of streamers that get frustrated because they're getting sniped through walls, and game companies don't seem to be able to do much about it. It is kind of nuts because we've gotten to the point where with like real-time vision processing, you can have one computer hooked up to another computer through a capture card. And actually that's fast enough that if you've got one of like the neural accelerators, like, you know, the machine learning accelerators that you can just buy for like $1,000, those are fast enough to do real-time 30 FPS 1080p analysis and do things like play StarCraft and click on people's heads. And it's just mouse movements and keyboards. So there's not a lot of, you know, stuff the game developers can go on in terms of anti-cheat because there's not even anything running on the computer.
Imagine you build a bare bones system. You're probably going to spend at least $2,000 to build around that card, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you spent $2,000 to cheat at PUBG.
Well, it's like people pay for aimbots in Overwatch, and it's like, what? Why? Or they pay to get their account boosted to Grandmaster, and then it's like they get back into Grandmaster, and then they immediately fall again. It's like, what are you paying for?
What do you think the amount of buyer's remorse is for that stuff? Do they feel like they're getting their money's worth?
I think in PUBG, when those guys are just, you know, laughing and trolling and stuff, they're absolutely getting their money's worth at like $1,000 or $2,000. They just enjoy the horrible suffering and misery of other people.
The chaos.
$2,000? Somebody should introduce them to strip clubs. Same artificial joy, right? Same artificial feeling good about yourself. You get more from it. Well, Tesla, one thing about Tesla that it seems to be true is early adoption was a really, really bad idea. Because there was a lot of little things that were wrong that they fixed along the way. But those cars are still out there. What can you do?
Older Tesla vehicles to get a UI performance boost thanks to famed video game engineer. Who are we talking about? John Carmack, of course, from the Doom fame.
Why is he involved? He's got one of those cars, and he's angry about the performance. And he's got enough of a name that he can get Elon Musk on the phone.
Yeah, I don't think this took place on Twitter, but I like to think that this was, you know, a Twitter thing where it was like, hey, you know, this sucks. And Elon Musk is like, all right, if you think you can do better, do better. And he's like, I'm John Carmack. I will. And he did. And then Elon Musk is like, oh.
No, I don't think Elon Musk admits wrongdoing. I don't think that's how he works.
John Carmack's got to be pushing 60, right? Or is he higher than that?
I think he's just about 60. Yeah.
Does he have the long hair still?
No, the last photo I saw of him, he had sort of like the Bill Gates '90s cut.
Those guys thought they were rock stars.
He's still a rock star.
No, they're not.
No.
You look at those documentaries, and it's like, what are these guys thinking? Come on, buddy, cut your hair. Well, if we all think back about the adpocalypse and the second adpocalypse, and then the shaking off of all of our subscribers, a lot of people said, why? Why are they doing this? Well, if you didn't already know, they've said it in the plainest English possible. Axios
reports that YouTube has said that content policing is good for business because the same people that want to control OnlyFans also want to control everything else. So,
wow, there's a lot of depth to that statement. That's true. First, they came for the thoughts.
Yeah,
and I said nothing
because I was not a thought. Content policing good I bet if you have less channels to promote, that means less spaces for ads, and people are willing to pay more for ads because you want to be seen on the big channel.
And you don't have to worry about the ad people calling you up and being like, hey, there was a great thing. I saw a headline. There's new wrestling promotions are popping up. Like Vince McMahon is almost dead and he's losing his grip. So these little small promotions are popping up, and one of them, they have a character, and his gimmick is he brings a pizza cutter to the ring, which in terms of weapons. But just through sheer coincidence, while he was pizza cutting someone's face on the screen, they were doing that picture-in-picture ad thing. It was Domino's. That's the kind of thing Google cannot let happen on YouTube. And Google Pay, wow, I had no idea. Did we ever cover this before?
We did, yeah.
I don't remember it, but wow, after reading this, it's just like, how can that powerful a company have a whole division this dysfunctional?
Look at the analytics team.
I complain about this kind of thing all the time. So Google Pay team reportedly in major upheaval after a botched app revamp. And it's like, I don't understand why people would be so upset that we revamped the pay application, because none of the people on that team, it's pretty obvious, have ever actually tried to use the app to pay for anything.
So they brought in a guy who was part of Google Pay India, and his whole idea was, we're going to make this exactly like Google Pay India because I'm familiar with Google Pay India. And his subordinates were like, sir, we would have to remove almost all the features to do that. And his response was, yeah.
Sounds good.
So then for a while, they had two competing Google Pays.
Yes.
You could have two apps on the same phone, but they were not related at all.
At one point, you would get an error message if you launched the old one because it was like, no, you need to go to the new one, and you just couldn't do certain things in the new one.
But it was a different account on the new one, right? And you had to transfer your
Yes.
money. It's just an astonishing failure.
Yeah, it's not unlike what happened on YouTube when they did the YouTube Studio migration, and it was like,
I guess they're just powerful enough that it doesn't matter. You'll deal with it.
Again, like I don't understand how this has happened, but they've lost sight of what they're trying to do, because like Android continues to be more steps and more cumbersome to do little simple things that you need to do, more clicks.
I think it's because everybody who needs to make a decision is so busy worrying about elections and lawsuits and antitrust and mergers. No one's really thinking about the computer science anymore.
How do we make Android better? Like just a better user experience.
No one is thinking about that.
Yeah.
They hired 5 guys to think about that, and they're all just like making woke posts on the internal message board.
I was going to say those people are probably like me, where they're trying to get the work done, and then they have 20 people telling them 20 different conflicting things, and then it ends up like a horrible mess.
You almost have the UI done, and they're like, hey, Krista, we're all getting together in the conference room because Bob's kids are getting deported, and we're going to protest that. And you're like, but this is launching.
There's cake in the conference room.
Krista, he's from Costa Rica. So, yeah.
I think that's a reoccurring, not the woke part, but just the reoccurring problem of too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yes.
And getting too big.
Yes.
Yeah.
They need a couple architects that's like, this is what it has to be, and they have to be people that are not awful people.
And Lena Khan's standing there with a butcher knife like, I'll solve it. I'll take care of it. You want to be smaller? I'll make you smaller. Well, PayPal, for a while now, they've been letting us trade cryptocurrency. I haven't heard a lot of hype about PayPal cryptocurrency. You know anybody that's used it?
No.
Apparently some people are, though, and they're expanding it.
PayPal launches its cryptocurrency service in the UK.
Okay.
It's not much more.
That's literally it.
They're doing it.
Are you in the UK using PayPal's new services?
Yeah,
Tell us.
let us know. Forum.level1text.com.
Also, it is pouring rain.
Yeah.
I don't know if the mics are picking that up.
25% chance.
I need to go check if the attic is leaking at some point.
Oh, is that happening again?
I hope it doesn't hail.
I'm not 100% sure that I found where the water was coming in that one time it rained like this.
Well, we continue to get amazingly juicy nuggets out of this Apple stuff. Was this part of the court case? Is that where we got this from?
Yes.
And man, how? Okay, so this is not the first time this happened. Wouldn't, if you were in this situation after the first big lawsuit and all the discovery, wouldn't everything you put in your phone be going through this filter?
Yeah, I would think so.
But apparently not. They are very cavalier about what they do on their internal chat.
Apple's anti-fraud chief says the company was the greatest platform for distributing the really bad stuff that I'm not going to say because the algorithm, because YouTube has big business in finding whatever. But yeah, and it's because Apple was saying that because our platform is so secure and so private that people can form private groups and nobody knows what goes on inside the private groups, but this really bad stuff is traveling through Apple servers and we have to fix that, which was the first step in killing the goose that lays golden eggs.
And that hash checking that the big controversy about them doing it on Google Cloud, turns out they've already been doing that in Google Mail.
Or iMessage.
All right. Was it both?
Yeah, it's any kind of like mail application.
So a lot of people, when he made that comment, people were like, wait a minute. How would you know?
And it turns out, though, remember the story from last week where people were making the colliding hashes because a lot of this stuff is happening client side? It's happening on your phone and on your computer, not in the cloud.
Meanwhile, that privacy that they tout so much, yeah, it is very secure on their end, but you have to do your part as well, and most people do not understand it.
Well, a Point-Up man steals 620,000 iCloud photos in plot to find images of nude women. Basically, he was guessing and recovering their passwords.
No, he was phishing them.
Or phishing them.
Yeah,
getting
so
their passwords.
He would actually target, I'm not sure exactly, I guess on social media, he would target beautiful women, and then he would go about his attacks. They weren't very high tech. And then he had some friends, and they would, whenever one of them would get a hit, they would all share the images. What a monster, right? He's got a quote here about, oh, poor guy.
He expressed fears that public exposure of his crimes would ruin his whole life.
Wow, he should have thought about that, when he was making public private images of women and how that might ruin their whole lives.
And I'm remorseful for what I did, but I have a family. Krista, what would your response be if hubby came home and he was like, listen, Krista, sit down. I got to talk to you about something. got a little legal trouble coming up.
Ooh.
But I'm remorseful.
Bad things. Bad things. Yeah, and if this guy said that same thing to me, why didn't, when he gave that interview, did the interviewer just stand up and slap him? Or do you listen to yourself? Do you just jabber and there's just like a low hum in the background?
Yeah, there's no justifying that.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even selling it. It was all for his personal consumption and sharing with his friends. Which in a way makes it worse, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's weird, yeah.
Well, Google loves being the default search engine. How much do they love being the default search engine? You can quantify it.
$15 billion. Google is going to pay Apple $15 billion to remain the default Safari search engine.
Now, we don't know that from the horse's mouth. We're kind of extrapolating from some other stuff, but I believe it wholeheartedly.
Oh,
don't
yeah.
you?
Yeah.
God, that shows you how powerful that is.
Yeah.
And probably why we shouldn't allow it. Yeah, we kind of already covered this in the other story.
Apple already scans iCloud Mail for CSAM, but not iCloud Photos. Not yet, but soon.
Well, the thunder is getting outrageous.
Maybe that'll drop the temperature a little bit. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I wonder, I'll be interested to see the comments this week to see if anybody could hear it.
Oh, I'm sure they can. But it's definitely getting colder outside because the air conditioners are having less trouble keeping up with all the lights and everything on.
Yeah, the grind is less.
Yeah.
The air's getting colder on me. Well, it's been a while. We used to do these every week, but they kind of stopped reporting it because it was the same thing. It's not going to stop. But now, when you just look at the quarterly numbers, it is staggering.
Cable TV lost 1.1 million subscribers last quarters. They went here.
That's just the clickbait headline. They went to Netflix.
Yeah, why would you pay for cable?
It was not. So the decline is lessening, but the article author surmises that the reason the rate of decline is lessening is because there's not a lot of people left to unsubscribe.
Right.
That green line is definitely not. It's just a solid downward trend. There's not a single month where it's like, oh, this month a lot of people picked up cable. Not anymore.
Yeah, Spectrum is begging me. Every time I get my internet bill, they also send me an envelope that's like exclusive offer. Please buy cable, and I'm like, no, I don't want it.
Cable literally is awful, but I also, we got to take a second to pour one out for that service that would rebroadcast what you collected over the air. What was that? I can't remember.
Sling.
No, was it Sling? No,
Slingbox did that.
It was the one in New York where they had like an array of antennas where you would literally rent your own antenna in an effort to be compliant with the law, and they lost their case, and they should never have lost their case.
Yeah, but I mean, a judge and jury is not going to understand the nuances of that law.
Yeah, well,
which is sad because that's their entire job.
The cable industry is partly responsible for that, and they deserve their fate.
Yeah.
No one's weeping over cable.
They more than deserve it. They deserve much worse. But it is fun to watch them decline.
No rending of garments here.
The sadness is most of those companies are also ISPs, and they're just fleecing us on the other end.
When they had the Adelphia court case, and the guy had the $36,000 elephant foot umbrella stand, somebody like the president or one of the Supreme Court justices should have had a big button that they hit to be like, something has gone very wrong in this industry. We need to bring the monopoly people to break it up, because there should never be, a pissing contest between executives at a cable company that is the extent that, we're having a debate about a $36,000 elephant foot umbrella stand. Like something, you just hit the button and then it's like, oh yeah, we got the cleaner team coming in to deal with that. And then it's not a problem anymore because that company doesn't exist anymore.
Man. I'm telling you, Lena Khan, she's there. she's in the shadows. She's got her shank. She's like an Aryan Brotherhood member with a life sentence. She's just looking to stab.
What was the thing that happens with Judge Dredd? It's like once you hit the criteria, then he can act with impunity.
She's just waiting.
Yeah.
She's got an Apple Watch. And there's a percentage on it, and it's just ticking up slowly.
She slices her finger with the blade and licks the blade. Maintains eye contact.
You guys ever hear of Stitch Fix?
No, I never had.
It's a personal stylist app.
Yeah.
Website thing.
So, do you know anything else about it, Krista?
No.
Yeah.
Just what I read in the article, but no.
But what a weird thing to let someone else choose your clothing, huh? I mean, a lot of people do it.
Well, it was more like a stylist kind of thing, and it was like, hey, I think you'll look good on this stuff. And it's like, oh, yeah, I do. That looks really good. And then they were able to grift some off the middle, which is, that's a pretty good business model.
Well, they would also do, like, if you had, like in my case, I'm very tall. Like, if you have hard time finding, like, long pants, you would hire a stylist, and the stylist would go through looking through lots of listings for long inseams, and then they would send you stuff that would, like, fit you.
I think they could also buy it for you and drop ship it. Yeah. So it was an interesting service, and based on what we just described, obviously, you don't need to be in a building or an office to do that. You can do that from anywhere, and you can do it at almost any time. You could, at least.
Stitch Fix took away flexible scheduling for its employees, and hundreds of them just quit. So Stitch Fix, there's a pretty good-sized company doing this. They've grown really well. It's intriguing.
I just can't imagine paying somebody for that.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't do it, but, like, in the article they were talking about, like, we know that they're probably just using us to train an AI to take the job. Like...
Yeah.
the AI is going to be the one recommending products. But like a lot of people who are customers of Stitch Fix were complaining because they already have an AI option, and they're like, I pay a higher fee to have a human do it because the AI never gets my measurements right. And now they're getting rid of all the people. So it's like, then why am I paying for Stitch Fix? Was kind of the vibe of the article. But
I think everybody should ask that question, even if they're happy with it.
yeah.
Just do it yourself. Come on. Over time, couldn't you take some cues from that and be like, all right, I see where you're going with this?
Or figure out like where you're buying the clothes from, and then be like, oh, they have clothes that fit my particular body, so I should look for them. I don't know. I don't get it, but I mean, some people are willing to pay for it, so.
Well, remember T-Mobile got hacked? There is someone now claiming that he was the hacker, and he's doing interviews?
T-Mobile hacker explains how he breached the carrier's security. Wish that he hadn't released all that. Oops. But it turns out that it was just an unprotected router on their internal core network, which is like a security 101 failure.
He wasn't striking out to attack T-Mobile or anything. He just stumbled onto it and decided to go with it. That wasn't nice.
It was very not nice.
You know what else isn't nice? Well, it kind of is nice to a very small percentage of the population, but for everybody else, it's a big threat, and that is free trials. No credit card required.
Clearview AI offered free facial recognition trials to police all around the world. Because, look, we've got this amazing product. You're probably only going to put a few black people in jail erroneously. It's totally fine. Try it out. I was like, wow, we found all those people we were looking for. We found a guy, 2 towns over in Michigan. We arrested him immediately. Oops.
There was all this physical evidence that cleared him, but we know better.
We trust this free trial 100%.
I can't wait till we get to the story about the shot spotter thing, too. Remember how we always talking about the shot spotter software? It's like, it can pinpoint gunshots in your city. Oh, not so much.
And the other thing about this
That was depressing.
That's crazy is apparently these law enforcement agencies, they depend on the chain of command in terms of requisition, right? So you don't use Clearview AI because you need a signature from up high to say that you can pay to use Clearview AI. But when they give it to you for free, you don't need any clearance at all.
It's fine.
So low-level guys would go to a conference, Clearview would be like, hey, here's a password. And all of a sudden they're using Clearview AI with no oversight at all.
The first one's free, and then it's like, wow, this is really good. We got so many more arrests.
Yeah. I bet that happened a lot of times.
Yes.
A lot of conversions, I bet.
A lot of conversions.
And here's a terrifying thing, because obviously we talk a lot about VPNs. You don't want your ISP looking at your traffic because, they sell your DNS information. You don't want people looking at how you might be circumventing certain things, stealing Netflix.
I would never.
But what you might not know is that you're not as safe as you think.
How data brokers sell access to the backbone of the internet. ISPs are quietly distributing quote-unquote NetFlow data that can, among other things, trace traffic through VPNs. This doesn't trace the contents of the traffic, just where your traffic is. So with NetFlow data, you can see the end IP address, like your IP address as a consumer, and if you have enough NetFlow data, you can follow that all the way back to Norway or Sweden or Iceland or Finland or Germany or Oman or whatever, and see that, oh, they're on a VPN.
And if some company like, I don't know, Disney or HBO has an IP address, and they're like, this IP address is a pirate, and they go to follow it, and they're like, oh, that's a VPN. Well, guess what? Buy the NetFlow data, tie the originating IP with that IP and the timestamp, and guess what?
You found them.
Disney lawyers on your doorstep.
I bet
No one
Disney
wants
will
that.
make an example of several people doing that.
Yes.
And
they
then
absolutely will.
everyone will be too afraid. And then everyone will have a Disney Plus subscription.
And we didn't really need to collect that information in the first place, except for the express purpose of de-anonymizing internet traffic. That's the only useful thing for that, really.
Well, only terrorists want to anonymize their internet traffic, after all.
Oh, well, obviously.
And speaking of terrorists, Mr. Lukashenko from Belarus has been there's been some accusations toward that area.
This was this week's black hole of time in the news because it's like, oh, I'll have enough time to read these. You go in this one, and this one, it just turned into a black hole of like, wow, this is our dark future. Like what's happening in Belarus is what's going to happen in the whole world, not too distant future.
He's a bit of a monster. And this was, I suppose, what you would call hacktivism, right?
Hackers released data trove from Belarus in bid to overthrow Lukashenko regime. So what you got to understand here is that the Lukashenko regime is super paranoid and really good at like disinformation and faking stuff, but they were doing geofence warrants before it was in vogue. They were figuring out what towers were where. They had stuff like stingrays where they could monitor cell towers, and so they're really super plugged into a lot of things. There's millions of hours of audio surveillance that these hackers have captured, because this is all like, you know, the thing I always say is like you've given chimps a bunch of machine guns. I don't mean that in kind of a racist way. I mean that they're using this really advanced technology without understanding it. And because they're using this really advanced technology without understanding it, they're not using it in a safe way. And so all of this surveillance that they've collected, the hackers have been able to collect. And there's a lot of really damning stuff in there against the Lukashenko regime. So
I got to say, though, the ball's on this hacker. Because if he gets caught, ooh, that is it.
Yeah.
That's it for his family, probably.
Yeah.
Tough. But got to applaud him, right?
Yeah.
I guess he's doing the right thing. This is where we get 500 comments supporting Lukashenko from brand new accounts.
Those were amazing when we were talking about some of the kidney harvesting festivals.
Anything Jinping.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like,
That happens everywhere on the internet. It's weird.
This is a bot. This is incredible.
Well, Samsung has a very interesting feature on their televisions that I bet you didn't know about if you own one, and I bet you won't like it. Now, this is in South Africa, but did they not admit this is worldwide, right?
Yes.
Every set
absolutely.
has this possibility.
Samsung South Africa activates TV block functionality to render all TV sets useless that were looted and stolen in July. So there was a thing that happened in July. There was some looting and some stealing. Samsung figured out which TVs that was by serial number, and now when they check in with the mothership, they brick themselves.
Yikes.
Unauthorized television.
And that's off forever unless you contact them and give them a valid receipt for your purchase. Secondhand Samsung TV that gets caught up in this? Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. Krista, please give us your South African impression.
South Africa. Is that good? That's not very good, I don't think.
Sounds
okay.
vaguely Australian.
It's South
It's
African is a hard
supposed to be
one.
Australian. It's supposed to be South African.
South Africa has like a real twang to it, though.
They clip their words more than Australians.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Well, another big botnet attack and more devices that are inherently unsafe. Every week we get it. Here's this week's.
Hundreds of thousands of Realtek-based devices under attack from IoT botnet. This is because of a flaw in Realtek's system on chip. So they put, the Ethernet interface and the actual microprocessor, everything. So it's just on one microcontroller. Turns out it had a flaw. So you can exploit a flaw in the driver from the network side, take over the whole device, and then bam, you've got a botnet.
Like they said, yeah, just take a picture of a commercial router switch, wireless, and just blur it.
Yeah,
it's
this
gonna
is
be cool.
the weird. It's like a low video game quality art.
Make it look kind of like a two-legged spider upside down.
Not a lot of effort.
The record.media. Some of these are paywall alternatives.
Yeah.
They're not always the best. But God bless them for not having a paywall. And another big leak, and it's once again misconfigured apps. Gosh, when will we learn? I don't think we ever will.
38 million records were exposed online, including contact tracing info. Misconfigured Power Apps from Microsoft led to more than 1,000 web apps accessible to anyone who found them. So this is just the APIs. We're entering an age where you're running all this stuff online, you create an API for something, and then you build your website in front of the API. And if the website is the thing that's responsible for authentication and the end user can see the API that you're using, what's to stop the end user from just connecting directly to the API, which may have all of the records? Oops, that's what happened here.
Now, one of my big criticisms of Linux on the desktop is the driver situation. It's not good. I know a lot of people wear it like a cross, but it's not good. But I got to admit, when you go too far in the other direction, you can get into some trouble, which is what has happened with Razer and Windows.
Razorbug lets you become a Windows 10 admin by plugging in a mouse. So this really cool thing in Windows, or not, is when you plug it in, it downloads the drivers from the internet automatically. And it just so happens that Razer's driver installer runs as the system user, which is even higher privileged than administrator. The driver installer will also let you spawn an Explorer window because it'll let you browse for where you want to put stuff. You can right-click, open a new window, and then bam. You've got an Explorer window that you can just run arbitrary programs at the system level. Razer said, we should probably fix that.
Bleeping Computer was nice enough to point out the cheapest Razer mouse you can get on Amazon. So if you want to get started, if you have physical access to someplace, that's really all you need.
Yeah, don't do that. That's a good way to get yourself in a lot of trouble.
You do have to have some kind of account as well. You have to be able to get in to get to the driver installer.
Yeah.
But that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah. It's like the printer driver thing. It's like, oh, let's install a buggy printer driver that's been signed by Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's like,
Took advantage of that, but this is so much simpler than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really is. What do we got lined up for Friday?
Nonsense and a massive robot.
Oh yeah,
section
robot
this
was
week.
long this week.
Yeah,
a lot of robots.
I didn't have. I've been sprinkling space in there too, though. Robot space. A lot of space news. Yeah, we're into this new space race here. It's
The
exciting.
Space Force. All right, we'll see you then, chat.
South African goodbye, please.
Oh, I'm trying to like hear a South African accent in my head. Good boy.
That's okay.
Kind of Australian. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. The rain has stopped. It's September 3rd. We're doing robot, space, and nonsense today, which is like, that's a good section. It's a good breakdown.
It definitely hasn't stopped. It's just let up.
Oh, really? I looked outside a minute ago and it was raining, but not like it was last episode.
Well, you know what else doesn't stop? Coffee delivery in Australia. There's no need for it to stop because you don't need humans for it.
Alphabet's drones delivered 10,000 cups of coffee and 1,200 roast chickens last year. So Wing served up to 10,000 cups of coffee. That's amazing. They got a picture of it. Show them the picture.
Yeah, I'll say, is there a picture on this article?
What would you pay to get a Meyer rotisserie chicken to your door in 10 minutes?
Probably like $20, $25.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't pay that much, but
I mean, when you're feeling that level of self-loathing and it's like, I can get a delicious roast chicken here and I can just hit a button. It's like, all right.
did you DoorDash very often?
Not super often
It's
because
expensive. Yeah.
they've been kind of weird about it too. Look at the whole...
After my grocery delivery experience, I can't imagine DoorDash would be anything but a disaster.
Yeah, we don't do the grocery delivery. Like we barely are okay with groceries to they'll bring it out to your car. That's
But
much less.
the same pickers do that, right? The worst parts about that are the same.
They seem to get the accuracy. The
Really?
accuracy seems
Higher.
a lot better for
Is
the
that-
car-based one.
Is that the difference between like Instacart doing it and internal people doing it?
I think internal people were doing it on our pickup because now that I think about it, I think at least twice that I can remember in my head, they were wearing the store uniform.
It
That's what
might
I'm
be
thinking.
too though that they have like more time. If they know like so and so's coming at X time to pick this up, like I can start doing this setup now, I guess, and
But
maybe
they
have
do
more time.
5
Oh.
or 6 at a time, so it's probably not that granular.
Well, the accuracy with the person delivery is not great.
And I get it.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not.
tried that last year. It was not.
I'm not trying to hate on you Instacart people out there. I know that you're under an incredible time crunch to do that, but come on, sometimes you don't try. Sometimes you're like, oh, do you want a replacement for this? I know it's there. I know it is. We talked last week about Alder Lake, and that's what this story starts out about. But the reason I put it in here is because of this incredible AI chip and that transistor density. Oh, my.
Intel unveils details of a 100 billion transistor AI chip and Alder Lake hybrid processor.
Look how happy he is with that wafer.
It's Raja. I bet he never thought he would be modeling Intel t-shirts.
So they are looking to come up against NVIDIA and their big, powerful AI chips with this new monster with all those transistors.
Woo! Time will tell. I can't wait to get my hands on some XE graphics and see how that is.
We're also entering a new world of driverless delivery, right? But not pizza. No. Instead, have you looked at the shipping prices?
Yeah.
Look, to get anything shipped right now across an ocean is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think the shortages will get worse.
And I think that's a big part of the inflation push is that, right? Anything that has to get shipped, you're tacking on a lot of money. Maybe this guy can help us.
World's first crewless zero-emissions cargo ship will set sail in Norway. So this is a ship for getting containers from A to B, but no emissions and no crew. Great for Somali pirates.
You think those are solar panels on it?
That seems like that would be bad because that's where the cargo should go.
Well, I think that the cans are all... There's a lot under the water there that you're not seeing.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Right now, it cannot unload itself. It still needs a crew at the docks. And I think someone might have to steer it into harbor, but eventually they aim for it to be 100% autonomous.
Well, unloading a ship like that autonomously seems like a great, something that modern AI could tackle if the interface was there.
Yeah, modern AI is going to get some pushback from those unions. Those are strong unions. You don't want to mess with them.
You think we'll have a thing in the future where it's like you're the descendant, you're the great-great-great-grandson of the guy who used to work at the docks to unload the thing, and the AI was just so good that, at first it was like you have to monitor the AI, but then the AI became just so good that you pass that job down through lineage, and you just get money from it.
People don't pass jobs through lineage anymore.
Well, I mean, it's like you used to be, the dock worker for AI, but then we have all this upheaval and stuff because it's like everything is done by AI. So you just get a stipend because you happen to be working that job, but then you die, but then it goes to your progeny and so on and so forth.
I think what you're kind of tiptoeing around there is a caste system. I don't think we've kind of figured out that's not a good way to do it.
Well, people do they used to be the farmer, and then when your dad retired, you got the farm. But I don't think society works that way as much anymore. You don't inherit the work of your fathers. You go to the city and then you get a different job.
And you shouldn't, because that scenario should be, it's like, hey Bob, you see the writing on the wall, right? The writing that says your job is going away. Don't have kids. We have enough. We don't need another one of you. That's what we're telling you here, Bob. We're going to take care of you till you die. But don't do it.
It's not so much the caste system, just that it's like you own that, but you don't really.
No, ownership is not a thing in our society anymore.
It's going to be universal income, which is going to promote rampant breeding.
Well, you used to be your grandfather was the dock worker at wherever. Your universal income is derived from what his universal income was at the time we transitioned to that.
But now you've given me basically... There's a golden ticket between my legs. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about it like natural gas rights. It's like there's a natural gas well on property that you own that was negotiated by your, grandfather or great-grandfather.
But you don't own a job.
Yeah, that's true.
I agree that there probably will be something like that, though. There's going to have to be a transitionary phase where a lot of bad decisions are going to be made.
That's probably something like one of them.
Yeah.
It's like I was part of the great Instacart generation.
There's going to be that one guy who refuses to go along with it because he has principles, and he's like, no, I will not have children. And they're like, but Steve, they're taken care of. People will adopt them just for the income. Speaking of bad decisions, we learned last week that every single Chevy Bolt has been recalled. And not only that, but they've now extended the park it outside and don't go anywhere near it to every single Chevy Bolt.
Wow.
Why? The answer is hilarious.
Misaligned factory robot may have sparked the Chevy Bolt fires. So it turns out in the battery packs, the big batteries are made out of smaller, easier to assemble, much safer batteries. And then there's a little piece of metal foil, basically, that's stamped in place. Well, this robot was ripping one particular stamp in half. So it still was electrically conductive, but only half the area that it was designed for. So it will overheat and fail eventually, causing a fire.
Also, I've noticed this is the second week in a row that Ars Technica in their little preview video has been advertising Dan Abnett from Warhammer 40,000. Why? Why is
Because
that
he
suddenly
paid for
popular?
the ad space.
I doubt it.
Click on it. I bet that's sponsored.
Well, it's just a
somewhere.
video. We
You
don't
might
know.
mention if it's like an ad though.
Maybe there's a game coming out or something. Autonomous rides. We've been promised them for a very long time, but these companies are kind of slow to go all the way. But it is trickling out. More and more of them in very, very safe places are saying full autonomy.
Waymo starts offering autonomous rides in San Francisco. Good luck, Uber, staying in business.
The one time the sub-headline is great, you don't read it.
But riders will still be under an NDA.
Oh, you're not allowed to talk about it if something goes wrong.
Not allowed to talk about it at all.
That's true. Although if you were like, that's the most amazing experience ever, I doubt they would complain.
They might give you a written release, yeah.
So if you have to, it's the same program, they changed the name. But if you're part of it, you're still part of it, and you can start requesting those. And you should tell us about it. Drones. Remember there for a while we had all those airport drone scares?
Yeah.
And they implemented all those DJI rules and all that stuff.
Who are these yahoos that are like, what crazy person would fly a drone around the airport? You're not supposed to do that. I mean, it seems obvious to anybody that has a pulse that that's a terrible idea.
But don't you think those kind of went away after they got their legislation?
Yeah.
That's weird. But this was not here in the U.S. This was across the pond, and apparently they didn't get the memo about airports.
Plane damaged after being hit by York police drone at Buttonville Airport. So the York police apparently were flying a drone around, and somebody was flying in a really small plane, a Cessna, and it did a lot of damage to the wing.
So they weren't at the airport necessarily. They were in a neighboring neighborhood doing surveillance, and somebody said, "What? Isn't it standard procedure that you notify the airspace?" And they were just like, "We didn't."
Righto, because they're British. They didn't actually do it.
And Blue Origin. What did you say, Blue Origin? If you had to rank the space companies, where would you put Blue Origin?
Bottom.
I'd put them above Virgin Galactic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, there's a huge gulf between all those and SpaceX.
Yeah, absolutely. SpaceX is definitely out in front. And it might be the reason this is happening, or one of the reasons at least.
Blue Origin employees are jumping ship. Jeff Bezos, the spaceflight company, has lost at least 17 high-ranking staffers in recent months.
He's
reports
lost
say.
some of them to SpaceX.
And we're not talking about HR people here. We're talking about the big brains going away.
How bad does it have to be that you're willing to go work for Elon Musk?
I mean, that's like picking between, I don't know, something really evil and something equally evil. Like
Lex Luthor and Dr. Octopus?
I guess, yeah.
Do you think Elon Musk is arrogant enough to try to tell these guys at this level what they should be doing? Or does
Yes.
he understand that
No.
he's not on their level?
No.
You think so?
Yeah,
I think he is, yeah.
I think that both of them will absolutely do that.
Yeah, it's got to be hard to bite your tongue if you're like a PhD in astrophysics and he's trying to tell you something
Yeah.
that you know is not the case.
Well, because when you watch the interviews with him, like, I think he understands quite a bit, but like,
Oh, he's
it's-
definitely a smart guy.
it's
yeah.
clear like he thinks he knows all the ins and outs of it, and I'm like, I'm sure you're smart, but like, I would leave this to the professionals.
And he probably knows way more than the average person.
Right.
Might be a little bit of Mount Stupid there.
Yeah.
Well, this could be good or it could be an absolute nightmare.
Oh,
I hate these private phone numbers.
that could be real. That could have been a
It's
real
not.
phone call.
It's our auto warranty again. Why can that not be an FCC fine?
I just want to tell Microsoft Teams, uninstall the call part. You've done it so terribly. Just get rid of it. What was I saying? Oh yeah, this could be a great thing, but I think when we look at our big tech companies, we see a dark, dark future.
We do.
Because that whole thing is going to be applied to this, and it's going to be bad.
The International Space Station could be followed by commercial space stations after 2030, NASA says. Will China's space station complicate things in low Earth orbit? You think they'll have like space cornhole where like you release a sandbag in one space station to try to but we accidentally take out the other space station's oxygen tanks.
Yeah, it's going to be that Kessler syndrome on purpose.
I was thinking more benign, not benign, I guess, but just more boring dystopia where it's just like competing gas stations or Dollar Generals, but they're, dotting every like available area of space above us.
I recently read an explanation of why that happens. Like, why is there a Lowe's and a Home Depot across the road? And it's because if you crunch the numbers, it actually is better to go where the customers already are than to try to get new customers. So they're willing to share. I mean, whoever's there first isn't willing to share.
Yeah.
But they don't have an option.
That's what I'm picturing that's going to be like. It's just full of space junk.
Oops.
Well, maybe if that goes horribly wrong and you're not willing to go to the Facebook station because you've been banned from Facebook and that's part of the requirement, maybe you can go over to our friends in China.
China to launch an uncrewed cargo ship to Tiangong Station. The Long March 7 rocket will carry the Tianzhou 3 into orbit mid to late September. So I'm sure we'll cover that on the news when it's time, but an uncrewed cargo ship
I want to
for
see
space.
I want to see the unloading robotics up there. Don't you?
Yeah.
That's
interesting. Or is it just sort of like use the vacuum of space to do it?
Yeah, it's like use the vacuum of space. Just let it float out and then just give it a little push.
Give it a little nudge.
Hope there's nothing, breakable in there. All my eggs are smashed.
That would be tough if you're one of the first crew members to get up there and you find out that all the stuff is just wrecked.
Yeah.
Just all smashed.
Where am I supposed to deliver this? One International Space Station way.
It's an Amazon driver. I haven't peed in days. And this is just a fun space story because it's just crazy how stuff works up there and the fact that we're able to learn about it. Again, this is one of those situations where, these people, we're all the same species, but the intelligence levels are so variable. It's incredible.
Hubble captures a stunning Einstein ring, magnifying the depths of the universe. So Einstein postulated that, hey, gravity could act as a lens in some scenarios. And sure enough, here we've got it. Oh, are there 5 things in this picture? No, there's only 3. But because of gravitational lensing around a black hole, it looks like there's 5.
Look at that. Incredible. It also gives us very, very long view that we would normally never get to see these things this far out.
Illusion 100.
So that's kind of cool. Think we'll ever get to a point where we have artificial gravitational lenses just for further exploration, or keeping an eye on all of the colonies?
I don't understand how if we get to a point where we've got, artificial gravity deck plating in our ships, that we couldn't do something like that.
Yeah, if you get to the point, and don't you have to manipulate gravity to get faster than light travel anyway? So
yeah,
why not just assume that's going to happen?
Or at least inertia. You got to do something to affect inertia.
Well, we do a little bit of 3D printing here in the robot section as well, because those are robots, right?
Kinda.
Especially these, because the scale is so high.
Feast your eyes upon the world's first 3D printed steel bridge. It looks whimsical, but it could be a blueprint for fixing our woeful infrastructure in the U.S. So they created a model. They put in a bridge initially, but it was loaded with sensors so that they could analyze what kind of traffic and stuff like that happens over the bridge. And then they used that data and used data about the stresses that the bridge was facing in order to design the most optimal solution.
And I remember there was a bridge that was kind of like this in that it was all curves and very smooth and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was also 3D printed. We did years ago.
Yes.
So how's that? How's that the first one?
This one's steel.
Ah, what was the other one made out of?
I think it was just concrete.
Obviously, though, they did not print this in place. So I don't know. I would like to see the robot actually do this on location.
It's unique.
It seems like that would be difficult, accounting for weather.
Also, we're not 100% sure this is going to work. How confident would you be using the 3D printed bridge?
Walking across it, I would feel fine.
There's no
being in a car, I wouldn't
there's
feel
no
super
vehicle
great.
traffic. It's only foot traffic.
Worst case scenario, then I get dunked. But if you had a car across, that'd be a little scary.
I bet those canals are pretty nasty.
Yeah.
You don't want to go down there.
No.
Especially
but
not if you got any open cuts.
be survivable. Survivable.
Well, Disney has always been known as pushing the envelope in terms of robotics. They have those amazing Hall of Presidents and all that stuff, and I'm sure they have even more impressive stuff now. Since
That one president looks so weirdly like Hillary.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
It was impressive when I was there 30-some years ago. I can't imagine what it is now, but we know that they've added an amazing new feature.
Are you ready for sentient robots? So this is Groot that we're looking at here.
Oh.
I don't think that's Groot because I don't think Groot has human teeth.
He looks like the Imagineer thing that they used to do. Is that what he is? Is that what that picture is?
The author talks about how he was interacting with the fully assembled animatronic Groot, and it was responding in real time to his stuff because he's, Groot was, all I am Groot and blah, blah, blah.
Also, I think the most impressive thing that I got out of it was that he was not fixed. He could move.
Oh, yeah.
He could walk around with all that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they were powering him.
They're
I guess
trying
he's
to
got a
replace
tether.
the cast members.
Some of the Disney robotics things, the robots do move around, but they have the power cable.
So now that we have this AI capability, here's my amazing idea. This would make the Hall of Presidents a huge, huge attraction, way more than it is now. We take that Donald Trump that was actually Hillary, we give it both personalities. And they kind of fight, Like the one is always trying to get out.
I feel like this is a plot from Futurama. One of the episodes of Futurama is like they loaded Bender's personality into another robot or something.
The Futurama story there would be they would do that, and then that robot gets elected. Because it detracts both votes. These horrible, depressing stories, they come far too often, and what drives me crazy is there's no recourse. They're just like, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. A year of your life is gone. Meh.
How AI-powered tech landed a man in jail with scant evidence. So this is that shot spotter software, apparently. And it went off near this guy's house, and they arrested him. And, pretty early into it, it's like, I don't think this is really enough evidence. But then they kind of forgot about it or had some paperwork or whatever. Dude was in jail for a year, and he's 65.
Solves their problem, right? Who cares?
Well, the judge, when he finally got in front of a judge, the judge was like, this is nothing. You have no evidence. And then that's when it got thrown out. But, I mean, at that point, he'd been in jail for a year.
How long did the prosecutor get for that false accusation?
Nothing happened.
Oh, that's how that works, right? They have full immunity to everything, no matter what happens. Kind of like that other company, or several companies that are getting that right now. This I was more impressed with until I learned how you control it. It is not, and I remember we did look at some of that stuff that was reading like the movements to predict. Even for amputees, they could figure it out. This is not that. You have to use your foot.
Robot thumb allows pianists to play with 11 fingers. So you mount a thumb over here, and it turns out it's pretty easy for us to figure out how to use that.
Isn't that like the beginning of iRobot? Don't they talk about that?
It's not in that picture.
And they don't actually have a photo of it.
Yeah, there wasn't a photo when I looked at it either. This article doesn't do a good job about there's a large scientific body that studies like tool use because it shows up in not just primates, and we have human beings and a lot of primates have an incredible ability to pick up a tool and make a tool part of like your psyche, but it is definitely something that has evolved over a very, very long time because some animals don't have that, but some do, like crows do. Crows can learn how to use tools really, really effectively, but other animals are not. Like like raccoons have the machinery to use tools, but they're not very good at it for whatever reason.
Because they're losers. Always have been, always will be.
Man, they can suck a yolk out of an egg though.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, but crows can. An octopus also. They're good at really, really good at using tools and figuring stuff like that out.
You know why they're good at that, Krista? Because they suck at everything. Down with raccoons. The big joke, and God, somebody had to do it on purpose. Last time we talked about this, we of course asked, why did they flare the head?
Yeah.
Why not just taper it? And then you wouldn't get this comparison. I think they're begging for it.
model of Jeff Bezos' rocket looks kind of like a sex toy selling for $69, according to the New York Post. Well, there's the picture.
Is this Blue Origin selling it, or is this
Yeah,
just...
it's
Oh,
official.
they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. 69 will get you the base, but if you want the single-use engines that come with it, I'm not sure exactly. I guess those are like a chemical reaction type thing, right? It's like 100 and some. And then you have to buy more engines.
Also, the shipping gets weird for that.
Expensive product. Also, jobsvacancy.in. You really have to go a long way sometime to get away from those paywalls. Tourism is, I guess, kind of picking back up in some places. I don't think that I would venture out. Although a beach is outdoors, it's probably pretty safe, right? Except the gorings.
Corsican cows will not give up their beach home to tourists. And this is in the post-lockdown situation. So in Corsica, there are some farmers that have grazing rights all over the island. And because there haven't been any people there, the cows have gotten braver and braver. And the cows really like hanging out on the beach. So now that the people are starting to come back, the cows are like, what are you doing? This is our beach.
Several people have been gored. One woman in the face.
Ooh.
How do you see a cow coming and get your face down there? Like, would
Probably
you?
taking a selfie. Like, oh, look at me on my vacation at the beach, and then they go to take a picture with the cow.
Also, how unfortunate this poor young lady here. They snapped as soon as she was picking her bikini out of her crack.
Yeah.
Come on, man. That's not
Be a bro.
That's not flattering at all. So there they are.
Look
and,
how happy they are.
Yeah, they're loving that beach. I bet it's fun to be on a beach if you're a cow, right?
Yeah, that's exciting.
Although don't cows have to eat almost constantly?
Yeah, grass.
There's nothing there to eat.
Cows, they also kind of just lay down when it's really hot. So maybe they get out on the beach, they relax for a little bit, cool down, and then they go eat somewhere.
They do have that recycling system.
Yeah.
So maybe you load up on grass, and then you go hang out on the beach and chew it, right? Sounds exciting. It's a fun day if you're a cow.
The cool water and the salt breeze.
Obviously, you can't just attack the cows because people would lose their minds about that. So what do? Nothing. You suffer. We've seen a lot of stories about people who live with their parents and then get into court cases about it. And I just can't fathom it. I mean, they're doing you a pretty solid favor letting you move in with them. But, yeah, I guess this is the way the world is now.
How much was son's porn collection worth that parents destroyed? Judge decides value. The answer, $45,000.
Whoa.
Which seems high.
It does seem a
Did
bit
he
high.
have... How much did he have?
Well, they describe it as a trove of pornography and an array of sex toys.
Ugh.
So I imagine the toys probably added a lot to the value, right?
And this is obviously something that wasn't suddenly discovered. It was something that they probably knew about for a long time.
Well, he moved out, actually. So I think when the pandemic hit, he moved in with them because, had some problems. Then he moved out and he was like, hey, I've boxed everything up. Just ship it to this address. And they're like, oh, okay. And so, some boxes didn't show up. And when he contacted him, his father said, son, we did you a great favor by destroying that awfulness. And that's what got him in the court case.
Ooh.
They admitted to it.
Did he have it cataloged? Like, imagine, you get 90% of your pornography collection back. And then it's like, where's the, sluts 999? And, it's because you're missing one thing. You've got, a spreadsheet, and you realize you're missing one.
Yeah, the great thing about this is that there is now a lot of court paperwork and evidence and stuff stored away somewhere about Sluts 999. An itemized list with valuations. They said that there were 107 titles that the court-appointed evaluator couldn't find a value for. What were those? That's just home videos. I had no idea that this was popular in some parts of the country, but then when I started thinking about how country people are, I was like, yeah. In a cowboy type of town, I could totally see this.
The city of Reno is cracking down on whips and moves forward with a public ban.
Also,
meanwhile, open carry is fine.
we do have to apologize to the Brits, or at least I do, because I'm always ragging on them about their steak knives.
Yeah.
But this is way dumber.
If you can't make a knife or make a whip and drive people out of the temple with it, are we even in a free country anymore?
Now here's the crazy thing, and I have maybe a theory, but I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have ideas about this. Somebody responded to this and said that it affects the homeless community most of all and is an undue burden on them. Why does the homeless community need whips?
Are they defining whips as like rope?
Yeah.
I don't.
No, they're cracking whips.
Yeah, but I'm like, I can't imagine. What would you need a whip for as a homeless person?
So the only thing I can think of is maybe like, you know how Times Square has all the grifters? Maybe like whip play in the middle of the street is a way that you're busking. You know?
Maybe?
Because you can do tricks with them.
That seems like a lot more work than most homeless people are willing to put in.
Have you seen those guys that stand completely still?
Well, those are street performers. I don't think those people are homeless.
Well, that's true, but they pretend to be homeless to get your money. Those guys make a lot of money, actually. Here's a fun new twist on the zoo. I'm anti-zoo, but, well, actually, nah, even if you did it this way, I'm still anti-zoo. It's better than the alternative, I guess.
Reverse zoo locks visitors in cages so lions can watch them.
I don't wanna be
Caged
watched
humans
by
playing
lions.
with lions.
Isn't this just what we've always done with sharks?
Isn't this a good way to lose a limb?
Yeah.
Stick your hand through the cage and then pull back a stump.
So it's plexiglass, and it gets tested every day for structural load more than an adult lion, and the holes are smaller than lion paws. But not human fingers.
Is there a picture of that in the article? This looks like a stock photo. Oh.
No.
No photo.
TheHill.com. They went through the trouble of describing it, but not taking a picture of it. This is just weird food stories. I love them. And this one, I am very curious. I have to say, what would this taste
We
like?
got to do this on a soda review, right?
Mountain Dew Flamin' Hot 6-pack, $12, coming soon. The first ever beverage combining sweet citrus flavor of dew with the spicy kicked up flavor of Flamin' Hot.
It'll be available by the time they watch this. It's coming available August 31st.
Not sponsored by Dew.
Please make a note of that, Sausage Toes. August 31st is when this is for sale. What, you said not sponsored by Dew? This is official.
I meant our
program is not.
That's true. I don't think that we would have good things to say about it.
That would probably be a bad look for them because their logo used to be a hillbilly, and then using hillbillies to promote it, it's a bad look.
There was some
Merch more.
More merch.
there was some country dish that I had one time when I was a teenager, and it was so bad that I immediately just like projectile vomited. Like I had a little bit of it, and it was like something is wrong, and it was like, oh no, I have to go to the bathroom.
Wait,
And it was like a violent reaction to something.
is this a product or?
No, I was having dinner with somebody, and like their grandparents cooked something, and it was so bad that I projectile vomited. It was bad.
Was it the flavor that did it to you?
Yeah, it was just a very like, I don't know. It was like sweat sock. It was like eating sweat sock. It was very bad.
How many people in the United States, now let's say the world, are proudly rolling around with a Major Melon $10 Mountain Dew keychain? Who wants that?
Who likes Mountain Dew this much?
I
The
like
website's very extreme.
Store.level1text.com.
I like Mountain Dew. I don't drink it because I know that it's poison. I like the flavor though,
I don't like the flavor of
but
Mountain Dew.
I don't want merch. China, I think the Jack Ma thing really kicked this off because they decided that, hey, some of these guys are so rich that they might be more powerful than us, and we cannot have that. But I think maybe they went a little too far with their propaganda. I think the torches and pitchforks are out a little too much.
China's common prosperity, quote unquote, push does not mean killing the rich, an official says. So the people in China were like, yeah, these billionaires, we need to take this down, common good, and we're all poor. And it's like, no. We do need common prosperity, but that doesn't mean that some of us aren't more wealthy than others. Go back to your...
Some of us are more equal than others.
It's also a very dangerous precedent, and one of the reasons that American politicians never play this card, they're also rich.
Uh-huh.
Jinping is doing quite well, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah, weird. this is the one that you were talking about earlier, and it is similar to the Space Force, like, oh, we're going to do it, but they were sitting around and they were like, what's it going to be like in 30 years? let's just guess. And that is exactly what they did. A bunch of guessing.
The U.S. Air Force predicts force fields and death rays by 2060. Directed energy weapons conjure up images of the Death Star's super laser or Optimus Prime's ion blaster. Yeah. Once you've got energy weapons and you're good at energy weapons, an Air Force is not a thing anymore. You'd only have
you need a Space Force.
Well, you'd have like Putin's super missiles that are so fast that no human being could pilot them because they couldn't survive the G-forces.
Even that against the laser's not going to work. As long as your tracking station can follow it.
Yeah, as long as your tracking station can follow it.
You could lead it.
Your only option, well, eventually it's going to be so fast that it's like a bullet. So it's like from the time that it's launched to the time that it lands, you might not have enough time to like get a lock on it.
Have you ever seen those Navy systems where they have a Vulcan chain gun and incoming projectiles, it just and they're gone.
Wow.
It can track that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we would definitely be able to do some cool stuff with this, and by cool I mean destroying humanity.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Meanwhile, it's like, can't we work on getting cleaner energy and like water to everybody who needs it? And it's like, no.
Only if we boil the water by shooting it with lasers that we develop for the military.
That might be how we solve global warming. It's just increase the cloud cover of the planet and then just let the white reflective clouds, put more solar radiation back into space.
Wouldn't that make it worse if you're reflecting heat from the surface back up onto clouds? That's why Venus is such a hot box.
I don't know. Maybe if we could do without some solar, it would even out.
Might as well try it, right? I mean, Dubai is already doing so much nasty stuff to the clouds. Why not? Now this one, I realize that there's some amount of like angry old man here that I don't like this. But isn't the gravitas of this whole thing a little more than Fortnite?
Yeah.
Doesn't this feel a little commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Fortnite lets you relive Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. The rest of the headline that Level 1 would add is, in bold experiment to see if Fortnite can live on as a massively multiplayer online world, sort of like Second Life. It's like, hey, the Fortnite engine, we could all just live in that and then experience some things, which is basically what this is.
One example that I can immediately show here is that, we're talking about something that had a huge impact on our society, and especially considering how race relations are right now, it's a very incendiary topic, and we have someone with a pink bear head observing it.
Is that good because it's inclusive, or bad because it, doesn't have the gravitas that is?
I don't know.
Will there be a point in like the furthest dystopian future where like speeches like that become public domain, but then someone like Disney or Fortnite buys it, and then they're like, it's an exclusive thing. You can only watch it in our VR experience.
It's funny you mention that because someone does own it. There's some sort of holding company that holds all of his intellectual property, I guess, and they had to work with them to do this.
It's also the bear head's also foreshadowing for our very last story. In terms of inclusivity.
I feel like that's just the mountain seclusion.
Yeah.
Like they're just now finding out about this and they're outraged. But we're foreshadowing that. Afghanistan. A little bit of a problem there. So it's not really a big tech lead in. We haven't been talking about it.
I'm not laughing about Afghanistan. I'm laughing about the horror of this story.
Yeah, and so now this is not the U.S. response, although the U.S. response probably couldn't have been worse.
Yeah.
But it turns out other countries are also fumbling this football amazingly.
The Home Office has responded to complaints about the emergency Afghanistan helpline. It went to a washing machine repair company. Whoops.
So they put out this press release, and it was like, hey, are you a national that needs help getting out of Afghanistan? Just call this number. Oh, no. Didn't work.
Yeah. I read this, and I thought that this is really funny because wasn't it Archer where their headquarters was in a laundromat? And it's like, oh, we've accidentally blown the cover of, the laundromat where we could have, folks for hire extract people from overseas.
I think that ship has sailed in that situation. I saw a headline. I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw a headline that the Biden administration chose to share a list of VIP Afghans they would like to get out of the country because they helped the Americans. Also known as a kill list.
Yeah,
Why would you do that? Also,
if anyone knows where these people are, please help us get them out. And it's
Yeah.
like, what?
here's their last known address.
Oh my gosh.
Here's a picture of what they look like. Oh my gosh.
Another terrible idea, photo shoots with wild, large cats.
So, okay, the headline is Leopard Attacks Model in German Photo Shoot. But scroll down. This German photo shoot set me up for this. Not that one. Keep going. Keep going. So I jumped to the bottom. This is a different story.
Oh, that's not him.
But I saw the headline. It was German, and I saw that, and I immediately thought, oh no, that's where they retired the one that mauled Siegfried and Roy. And that it's happened to get killed again. But she didn't die, though. But she's mauled. She's mauled real bad.
That
It wasn't that.
That was
That
a
one's
white
probably
tiger.
dead, though. How long did tigers live?
Uh,
Also, that was a tiger. This is a leopard.
25, 30 years. Yeah, no, I got all the details wrong, but I just was like, oh no, it's killed again.
They didn't blame the tiger there, and I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Tigers are super dangerous in real life.
If you took me from where I am now, and you took me to a planet run by tigers, and you put me in a room full of hundreds and hundreds of tigers, and started, like making me try to do things, I might get violent. Maybe, especially if I'm a lot bigger than those tigers.
I don't really feel like doing this today. I've got an impacted bowel. It's like, oh, what's he trying to tell us?
He's telling us he wants the whip. They didn't whip Siegfried and Roy were angels. They didn't whip their animals. I guarantee they did. They're having a bad day one day. Give them a smack. 3D printed meat. Have you tried it?
I've not tried 3D printed meat, no.
We tried the Impossible Burger. Was
Yeah,
what we
That's
tried.
not 3D printed.
No,
No.
that's grown.
That's plant based, and this is actually meat. Impossible Burger is not meat, right?
Right.
So this 3D printed meat, I remember reading, that like they made it, and everybody was like, "Wow, it's really impressive." And then they, at the very bottom of the article, and like a little paragraph hidden away, it's like, "It tastes like crap. We hate it." And this, I think, they're trying to fix that.
Scientists reveal the world's first 3D printed marbled Wagyu beef. So the 3D printer can print 3 different kinds of tissue, which is what's required, pretty much. You get vein tissue and muscle tissue and fat. And so it's perfectly marbled
Look how delicious.
as a result of that. Also a little bit of food coloring because, well,
So they print these long tubes, and then cut them, and then sort of like arrange them in a random grain.
Meat structure.
Yeah, and they've got some fat in there. They did not tell us how much this cost. I imagine it was tens of thousands of dollars.
The cells were also grown. So this was not processed meat. These were grown from fat stem cells as well as muscle and tissue stem cells. They used 2 types of stem cells to generate 3 kinds of tissue. And yeah, I would try one. It probably won't give me cancer.
Maybe I might try one. I wouldn't be the first. I'd like to see plenty of evidence of other people trying them before I try them.
It turns out it's been in the hamburger, the hamburger that you get from chain stores for the last 10 years, and then they're like, surprise, we've been growing that in a lab.
Did you see the revelation that came out about McDonald's burgers?
Yeah.
What was it? I didn't see that.
You know how the chicken nuggets are that mechanically separated pink slime?
Yeah.
It turns out, was it 40%?
40%.
40% of McDonald's burgers are mechanically separated beef pink slime, which, until you bathe it in a chemical,
Don't look that up.
is not human consumption meat.
Yeah,
You cannot sell it to humans, but then they treat it with the chemical, and then they're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I had McDonald's, I think it was last week after the news. I was like craving McDonald's.
If you look that up, you will never have it again.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop me. I eat nuggets to this day. I don't care.
Yeah, so I read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair when I was in high school, and like that caused several people in my class to go vegetarian briefly. And all I was like, man, I kind of just want a Slim Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like experiencing the jungle in about 30 seconds of video, like just that level of horror in a really compressed timeline. So maybe a little bit more horrifying.
I found The Jungle was depressing to me on a different level. Not about the meat production, but about like the horrible things that happen to the people in that.
Oh yeah.
Well, to me, it always goes back to the same place. Why do these people keep breeding? Their lives were misery. They hated it all. It was awful. But they were like, yeah, just keep having kids. They'll enjoy it, even though we don't. Now, Chrissy, you say we did this one before. I don't remember anything about it. We're going to quickly revisit it.
Which animals could you beat in a fight?
Now, personally, both of you, where's your stopping point?
I definitely could take a goose.
House cat's easy.
You think you could take a goose? I feel like goose should be higher on the list of threat.
I would smash a goose.
I've picked a goose up by the neck before that was like, giving me a hard time, and it was like the fight or flight thing, and it was like, I'll leave you alone, goose, and it kept coming, and it was like, all right.
Geese are freaking aggressive. That's my thing. Like they're not that like strong or anything, but they're just mean as hell.
And the most it's going to do is bruise me or maybe take a little bit of skin. So I feel like I give it my left forearm, right? Mm-hmm. And then I get the neck. And then the stuff that's over.
Yeah, if you get the neck, I might be able to take a goose.
I think you got a goose all day long. Medium-sized dog, it's getting
that's
a little
iffy because
you're
they
going
got
to take
those
damage
teeth.
there.
Yeah.
The thing, what worries me about the dog is my pain reaction, right? Am I going to be able to, like, once it latches on, that's my opportunity, but is my pain reaction going to make me do leave my fight plan behind?
Well, it's like with Rue when she was little. She didn't bite hard or anything, but she nibbled on stuff. And like sometimes when we were playing, she could nibble pretty hard, and that was when she was tiny. Yeah. A medium-sized dog, like if they're trying to get you, they'll get you good.
They got crazy jaw strength, yeah, for sure. Yeah. You're gonna take a bite in that encounter, yeah, for sure. Now, eagle, no way do I tangle with an eagle.
No.
Yeah, I think chimpanzee. I've heard that story about the woman who got her face ripped off, and I'm like, no.
Chimps are way stronger per pound for pound. A chimp will destroy you.
I have a very vivid memory from childhood of a hawk carrying a cat off. It was like one of those, like fresh snow mornings, and you go out on the porch and it was quiet, and the cat had been sleeping on the porch, and then it was like it gets down and it goes, and then just out of nowhere it's just like the cat was gone, and it was like I saw a blur, and it was like, oh my god, a hawk carried away the cat.
There's this great video. Probably one of the Twitch lurkers posted it, and it's that same situation. It's a rabbit, and you see the hawk like just hit the ground, and it's got the rabbit, and this little deer runs up, and the deer like runs by, and it stops, and it looks back, and it comes over, and it's just smashes that hawk, and the rabbit runs away, but the deer doesn't relent. It's just like
it kills the hawk.
Smash. Yeah. It's a great video. I'm sure you can search for deer kills a hawk on YouTube.
Also, I find it interesting that Americans in this chart are way more confident than Brits about what they can take on.
Well, we're better. Just, overall.
We do, maybe we have more exposure to wild animals maybe than Brits.
Now, I would say once you get into the bottom half of this graph, aside from kangaroo, my first pick is going to be crocodile. Right? Because I'm going to try the Steve Irwin thing. You get on its back and hold on hard enough.
It'll death roll. And I'm too small. I can't pin down a crocodile.
But gorilla, lion, elephant?
No.
Nah. No. I still think crocodile is the easiest pick down there. Even better than wolf.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. A wolf, they have medium-sized dog, large dog, and wolf, and it's like those are all kind of the same.
Engagement challenge. If you were going to face a wolf or below, and you could pick, which one would you pick?
Krista,
I played you King Cobra.
Take the roughest, meanest. What do you got? Rottweiler, Doberman, German Shepherd. Nothing compared to a wolf.
Yeah, but I'm saying like they're all kind of similar. They could have picked better animals for this survey.
What animal would you pick?
Something that's not a dog shape. They don't have tigers on here?
Well, the quadruped shape is pretty universal.
What about like a whale?
They got a lion on there. A whale.
A shark.
Is that in or out of the water?
Yes, and they don't have any aquatic animals on this list.
I don't think anybody could defeat a whale. Like,
no,
even if the whale wasn't fighting back.
They're just too big.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of the milk crate challenge?
No.
Yes.
I just heard about this very recently. And when I heard about it, I started Googling videos of it, and I almost immediately came upon this one.
Viral video catches fatal Louisiana shooting during milk crate challenge.
So do you understand the concept here? You build a pyramid of milk crates, but it's only one wide, right? So when you start walking up it, it's going to wobble. And you have to try to get all the way to the top and then all the way over to the other side.
No one's done it that I've seen so far.
So they waited till this guy got near the top, and they started shooting. 3 dead.
Oh.
Yeah. crazy. There's also an insane amount of videos where you can just watch people smash their head, because this is crazy dangerous. I think someone died just from a fall as well.
I was debating the other day when I saw this starting to trend. I was like, is this better or worse than the cinnamon challenge?
Way worse.
Yeah,
Much
I think
worse.
it's way worse.
Definitely worse.
In terms of human death,
Yeah.
way worse.
The kill count on the milk crate challenge is much higher than the cinnamon.
And our final story is somewhat local.
Oh.
And again, we live in the mountains, right? And mountains are incredible. Even in the age of digital information, the mountains are incredible at lagging culture.
Yes.
And technology.
Yeah. And so, like when we were in school, when we were in high school, we were wearing a brand of jeans, and if you went to the nearest city, people would be like, why are you wearing that? Did you get those from a secondhand store? That's not hot anymore.
I had that experience moving from Washington to here, where like West Coast, everyone loved NSYNC, and then I moved here and everyone was still on Backstreet Boys, and I was like, Backstreet Boys is old news. Like,
That's the mountains.
yeah.
The mountains will insulate you from culture, and it turns out that we are just now getting up to this point.
Kentucky School District. Students are dressing and acting like cats. Let me go ahead and give you the modern translation filter for this. Furries have come to Kentucky.
Meade County, and clearly a lot of people from Meade County did not know what a furry was.
No.
And I gotta say though, I feel like I'm on the furry side here,
Yeah.
because what problems are they causing? There was one grandmother that they quoted several times in this article, and she's like, "It ain't right."
Well, they were, at least at my school, also in Eastern Kentucky, they were weird about like Halloween. You weren't allowed to dress up at Halloween. Like, 'cause they're like, it's distracting. So I imagine maybe that's their argument here. But I mean, who's it hurting? Like, what's the problem?
I guess it is distracting, but couldn't you argue that, like, just don't pay attention to it? Just have some self-control, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
This is still a problem. We have excellent schools here. I'm just embarrassed by what this has gotten to. Well, first of all, the grammar there. But,
There's going to be a special school board meeting on September 14th. Look for a follow-up from Level 1 News.
Well, the principal said they were already in violation of the dress code. So I think they've begun to crack down on it already. Also, do you think they were all cats? Do you think
No.
anybody did anything other than the cat?
They probably just assumed they were cats because they couldn't recognize what animal it was.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
just like, the.
Yeah.
I bet they were definitely all animals with tails, though, right? Because that's everybody's favorite part of the furry outfit's the tail.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm wondering, like, I wish they had pictures in this article because, like, there's not.
kids.
You can't afford a really nice quality fursuit at that age, I wouldn't think, especially not around here. Like, where would you get it made?
I don't know, because
So are they homemade?
another thing about the seclusion of the mountains is you still have a high skill, like tailoring and stuff, in some of the families.
Yeah, so, like, did someone's grandma make this?
What if this ends up leading one of these country grandmas? Like, they discover she's amazing at furry suits, and now she's an Etsy legend.
This
That
is the
could
cottage
happen.
industry that saves Eastern Kentucky.
We go from coal as our export to fur suits. Now that would be
Beautiful.
the future that I love.
If only fursuits incorporated crochet somehow, I think we would have a shot at that.
All right.
I don't understand what the link to crochet is.
All the old people around here are incredible crocheters.
Yeah.
Maybe you've just invented a new kind of fursuit.
It would definitely breathe well.
Yeah, because it's like a mesh.
That was the nice thing about having the crochet pullover is, like, even in the warmer months it's still pretty breathable, but in winter if you're really cold it's good at holding the heat in.
What if I'm tied up on a hotel room floor at a convention?
Oh man,
How
I
does
mean,
it perform
you
then?
you could basically you could lay just double it over and you could sleep on the floor on one of those. It's great.
I'm never taking it off.
Yeah.
That's not allowed. All right,
Right.
Krista.
That's it.